and doesn't know that much about cricket, but she knows where the emotional punch is in a sentence, and how to make that come out. But the thing with my wife was, well, she said, well, you spent like 18 months on it. How much longer are you going to spend on it? So, which was a fair enough question. I mean, I was still working, but there's a point at which you have to pull stumps on it and go with it. Yeah.
Nindo, what about you? Did you find at any point people starting to yank your chain a bit and going, well, where is it?
Well, for one of the books, I did actually have to ask for an extension, and Wizards was that book, and the reason for that was I'd been working on it for 15 months, something like that at that time, and the book had been commissioned as a 60,000 word book, more or less, and I ended up submitting 115,000. It's just because I honestly had no idea at that point in time how much more work was involved in terms of the people I was researching and writing about, because there were just so many of them who I actually didn't have an idea, from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, who were as significant as they had been at that time, until I started going back to the archives, reading about them, etc. Because you don't hear about them because they haven't gone and taken 8 wickets in an innings. Right? Sure. But they've done other very significant things which you need to talk about. So that took a while, and I rewrote the book 3 times. So because I was not happy with my writing. I thought I was happy every time, but I wasn't. So in the end, plus my wife didn't like it.
Well, she your biggest. Well, you've got something else you got in common. You've got supporters and critics wrapped up in
because she's not she likes cricket, but she's not a huge cricket fan. But then she knows that as a lay reader, when she reads it, is it interesting? Is it what she wants to turn the page on? Right? Yeah. And that's valuable feedback. So that sort of meaning. So I had to ask for an extension. Where I got lucky was that the editor who's worked with me on my last 3 books, and the third one is not a cricket book. It's a sports book, but it's going to come out either end of the year or early next year. He himself is a huge cricket fan and a writer. So he understands the process, and he's pretty accommodative in that. And I think from his experience, what he does is he actually gives quite a long rope to writers in terms of the actual publishing time, so that when writers come back and ask for an extension, it doesn't upset their schedule.
I guess there's always that.
So that's but the new one, The Greatest Year, that was an exception because it's the 50th year of the 1971 victories, and they literally took the call that they wanted a book out there 2 months before publishing date. And they called and asked me whether I could put out a fairly short book, because that's what they were looking at.
So they actually commissioned you effectively in this case to write the book, as opposed to you saying, this is the book I want to write?
Exactly. So they asked me whether I could write that book in 45 days. Which was a huge challenge to me, because I'd never written a book that fast, right? Because I had to do the interviews, I had to go back and check everything. Fortunately, the spinners, the quartet, were involved in both of those series, and I had extensively interviewed them already for Wizards.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of the material from them with me, and they were a call away if I wanted to speak to them. And I managed to get some of the other cricketers to talk to me as well. And I managed to turn it around fairly quickly, only because it was a fairly short book.
Yeah, I remember Duncan Hamilton actually saying when he was writing The Great Romantic, he also dashed off, sorry if you're listening, Duncan, but he also dashed off a book called Kings of Summer. And I asked him, precisely a very similar situation, and he said, well, interestingly enough, yes, I did it at the same time because I was inspired by a particular match, but also it was easier because I was in the process of already working on the book about Neville Cardus, and hence Neville Cardus kind of.
Welcome back to Guerrilla Cricket's coverage of the final session of day 5, the final session of the first Test match. And really ignore the score. The only bit you need to worry about is the 2 wickets that England lost in that session after New Zealand's, in theory, generous declaration at lunchtime, setting England 274 runs to win. England closed the session at 56-4-2 with Dominic Sibley very solid on his 19, I believe it is. 19 off 83 balls. Rory Burns looked good until he got rather discomfited by Tim Southee's a little bit of extra bounce and swing, and Mitchell Santner's a little bit of spin, and then was prized out by the excellent Neil Wagner, who's bowled a very, very good spell. And then Zach Crawley was tied down and then suckered out by Tim Southee, going a little wider on the crease, hanging it a little bit wider, as in the first innings. And an edge to Gully. Joe Root is on 0 not out. I'm Knuckle Mpande, and I'll be summarising for Gary Naylor with Nestle Boy reading your socials.
Yes, thanks, Knuckle. We're set to go again with a weary but perhaps a little more energised Tim Southee, given he's just got this one, albeit very long session to go if it goes the whole way, and has both openers now, or rather the opener and the number 3 are out, so Dom Sibley is there. Some might say grinding his way to a valuable 47 not out of 148 balls, but let's see. Joe Root is new at the crease. I think the only thing that we're looking at is whether New Zealand can take 8 wickets. It would be quite a state of affairs if England were to suddenly start blitzing the boundaries. There's 3 slips and a gully for Root.
And a jingle for Southee.
It's only a whimsical notion to fly with Tim Southee tonight. I probably won't fly with Tim Southee. But again, I just might.
So Southee is in over the wicket to the right-handed Root, who defends, and the ball skews a little off that sort of outer portion of the bat. He gets a lot of runs through third man that way, does Root, and they scarf for a quick 2. He goes 2-2, and England are 58 for 2 with a target of 273. I was thinking during the break that what the kind of calculus that England must have come up with at lunchtime was that the best way of winning the series was to bat out a draw here rather than chase 273, and then hope for a win at Edgbaston. Southee's in again. This is defended by Root, and I don't really see the logic in that when you've got 273 to get in what was knuckle 60 odd overs. Surely the best way to win the series would be to try and win this match, and then you've got a draw or a win at Edgbaston to secure it.
I mean, Rory Burns batted reasonably well. Dom Sibley is not a flamboyant and an attacking player, but there was very little attempt at strike rotation. It has given the. I was a little bit surprised, perhaps, that England didn't try and be a little more proactive.
This is defended. There's no run. I mean, that's what I think. Where was the plan to rotate the strike? Where were the attempted boundary shots? You don't expect them in the first 5 or 6 overs to come in and start wagging around. But once you've not lost a wicket in the first 6 or 7 overs, if you are going for the win, I think you've then got to start putting the pressure back on the New Zealand bowlers. And they were pretty much allowed to bowl where they liked. I mean, they bowled quite well, but they didn't bowl badly, but they also didn't bowl well. I think a little too wide, a little too easy for the England batsmen to leave the ball. Southee's in again, and that's a ball that we've seen a lot this afternoon, well outside off stump, and Root sort of treats it with disdain as he watches it go through ankle height to BJ Watling. I'm not saying New Zealand are not trying to win. You can see they are with their field placing, but perhaps the complicity that they would need by England trying a few shots. Well, perhaps only Zach Crawley has given them that complicity with a pretty poor, flat-footed swipe.
And even Zach Crawley, that was his 25th ball after he'd been tied down and rendered scoreless. It wasn't as though he did it second ball.
Yeah. This is down the leg side, and it's a spectacular take by BJ Watling, who hasn't had the best of matches, but did well leaping like a cat to get that ball down the leg side. He was tied down, but I didn't see absolutely every ball of his innings, but he also didn't look like he was in the greatest of form. He didn't look busy, he didn't look like he was trying to strike boundaries the way he did so very well against India time when he made 50.
Well, what was noticeable was, I think it was at Sri Lanka actually, wasn't it? Was it
Sri Lanka?
Really batted very well in the last innings of the Sri Lanka Test. He hit a couple of very nice shots that were fielded quite well.
And that's a horrible wide of off-stump dying delivery from Southee. It's the end of the over. We'll come to your tweets. England 58 for 2.
We've been joined by Bradley Dunn, who says good morning, and he's a Kiwi, and he's listening from Salt Lake City in Utah. Jay Grover says, Nestlers, you look terrifying. If it wasn't for the cramped t-shirt, I think you'd tied someone to a chair in an Appalachian apple cellar. Gary, did you find out if that were a John Martin painting yet, the one behind you?
No, I still think it's been picked up by my partner at Wimbledon Market. I don't know. I barely look at it. You can probably tell even from the keyhole that you're looking through at my living room that I care not much for my surroundings when I'm at home. So Neil Wagner is in, very full on middle stump, and gives the full face of the bat from Sibley.
Let's get some jingles in.
Sorry.
That's Neil Wagner. He's my boss. And when he takes 5 wickets in an over, it was Moynihan.
Efficient batting. He made huge runs, the rumours spread by word of mouth. This guy's really talented. Dominic Sibley.
Who's taken on the pad by Wagner. He goes up for the appeal. It's pretty clear inside edge as far as I'm concerned. And Wagner does that sort of hands over the mouth, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Kane doesn't look all that interested. The DRS timer is running down. Kane even blew a bubble there with his chewing gum. It was an inside edge, wasn't it? Surely.
Too high. Too high as well, even if he didn't hit it.
We're having a look. No, there was no inside edge, but you're absolutely right, Knuckle. It was in
the knuckle.
Yes, it was.
Almost, yeah. Inside thigh onto inside thigh.
We do this inadvertent screenshot saying he wants to second the request that came earlier about reading the score out more.
This is past the outside edge of Sibley. Goes through to the keeper. I'm pretty fastidious about this. I do it at the end of almost every over, sometimes mid-over. It's still 58 for 2. But yes, as a listener, I'm always wanting to know what the score is. So that's it. We're seeing the replay of the DRS, and well, it was only just going over. Umpire's call there, and that's an example of the umpire's call where the new regulations, new this year, I think, Knuckle, where the bails are included in the 50%
in the strike zone, yes.
Yeah. So that would have been umpire's call. They wouldn't have lost a review, but no umpire was ever going to give that out, as that goes through to the keeper, and there is no run.
Yeah, just to explain that, it used to be the case that 50% or more of the ball had to be hitting within what's called the strike zone, according to the graphical projection, for it to be out. If it was between, it was 49% or lower than 50%, but it was umpire's call. That strike zone has now been extended to the top of the bails rather than the bottom of the bails. So we'll see basically a lot more umpire's calls.
On height, yes. This is outside off stump, and one can be overly critical, but we've definitely seen too many balls that have been too easy to leave, given that England have pretty much shown a lack of interest in chasing from the start. New Zealand could have bowled more often at the stumps and risked being hit through mid-wicket or square leg for the boundary. and kept the 3 slips there. But England have just been able to leave far too many deliveries, I feel.
I'll ask a question that you're probably not going to like, Gary.
Oh.
I'll ask it after this ball.
Who's the white-haired whinger from Liverpool? This ball is off the inside portion of the bat. It's fielded at a very close mid-on by Colin de Grandhomme. It's the end of the over. It's 58 for 2.
Do you think that there's to a certain extent, New Zealand are now using this as time in the field to get ready, and at some point, if this carries on, that England, Joe Root will want to sort of end the match and shake hands and walk off? And
I think Root would shake hands now and walk off.
Yeah.
I think we're not far off seeing Mitchell Santner having a long bowl. I don't think there's much point in Southee and Jameson running themselves into the ground if they don't take a wicket in this spell, really. But Southee's in again, and this is defended to the gully area by Root, and there is no run.
I hadn't jingled up the England captain.
His voice is high-pitched and ginger hair like a picked, but massive runs he has hit, so there's that. Introduce yourself.
Joe Root.
Introduce yourself.
Joe Root.
Introduce yourself.
Joe Root, actually.
I think Mitchell Santner actually bowled well he bowled well and was getting a little bit of life out of the surface, certainly to the left-handers from the rough in his 3 overs. I think he is worth a little go, maybe see if he can get the one to skid into the pads to the right-hander.
Oh, look, I completely agree with you, and another ball's just let go well outside off stump. I completely agree with you. I think he's definitely worth a go, and I'm not saying that Santner would be bowling purely to rest the 3 seamers. It might help a bit with the over rate as well, so that might avoid whatever sanctions are ever given for over rates. They don't ever seem to be given, but it might help a little bit.
Well, I mean, you say that. In the World Test Championship, they're actually quite severe. Part of the reason that Australia didn't make the final is because of a points deduction for a slow over rate.
Yeah, they seem to be arbitrary, and, well, yes, irrefutably true. That's outside off stump. They used to have captains who were suspended. That doesn't seem to happen anymore. But it's another story. As I say, I'm not too interested in the argument about whether the fans are being shortchanged, because arguments can be made both ways. What cannot be refuted is if captains wanted to bowl the overs quicker, they could, and they choose to ignore a rule which is in place. It's their choice. They flout it, and 999 times out of 1,000, it seems to me, they face no sanction. But in the World Test Championship, so be it. As this is very full, big appeal for LBW. I thought he bottom edged that, but Root's got it round the corner, and they've scampered a single. We'll wait and see whether that's given as leg byes. It appears not to be given as leg byes because the camera's picking out Kane here. I mean, if he thinks that was pad first, surely he's got to.
Well, I think it was going down leg.
I think it was as well, but if they thought it wasn't, then they would review it. I think they've still got all 3.
No, they wasted one from a very similar delivery, actually, that was going down leg. I think that's one of those. That's one of those that you appeal for. Obviously, you appeal for it because you do, and then think, nah, probably not.
Yeah, I think that's a fair summation. It was very full. They always think they've got more of a chance when they're full, but it was sliding down leg side. At best, it was umpire's call. Sibley's on strike, and he does that sort of crabby shot which comes slightly across his front pad, but he does punch it into mid-wicket, and they take a single. And it's quite important for Sibley to do this, even if his role is not in chasing down the target. He can't just become the calm there. He has to rotate the strike. He has to keep England thinking positively.
He's looked pretty at ease with his task in this innings and fairly comfortable in what he's doing.
It just encourages New Zealand so much if they can just bowl dot ball after dot ball after dot ball.
It is true. I think more so to Root though.
Yeah, absolutely. But Root won't let them bowl dot balls. I'm pretty sure of that. Once he's in, he's still finding his feet because that was only the 14th ball he's faced. But he got it to skew off the bat into the offside. 60 for 2.
Derek Bower from the States is telling none other than Eric Idle that he relies on the sweary drunkards at Greta Cricket for commentary. So Eric, if you do tune in, most welcome. And always look on the bright side of life. Madan Mohin Sharma says, now maximum 30 overs are possible up to 6:30 p.m. These 30 overs will be very, very testing for England. New Zealand have understood that English players only have one gear in the race. Yep, well, come on England, you can do it, says Leia.
Wagner's in, and this is pushed by Sibley into the offside, and there is no run.
And in fact, she says that, I've seen you collapse to the Kiwis to the tune of 42 runs, and I'm convinced you can do it again.
Well,
doesn't look like it.
There was some stat, wasn't there? England have been all 10 wickets in a session. That happened something like 5 times in the last 5 years. So nothing's impossible. And with this very callow England top order, that's even more the case. But it's Wagner coming in, left arm, hostile round the wicket, well outside off stump, and just goes through to BJ Watling.
There has been a change of emphasis, though, in the Silverwood era compared to under Trevor Bayliss. There has been a change of philosophy and a desire partly to pick players who are, particularly top order players, who are more attuned to crease occupation, the likes of Dom Sibley and Rory Burns in particular. And there has been a little bit more of a change down in the gears. So those collapses are, as a result, less likely.
Yeah.
And also, the ball is swinging a little bit, and Santner's got the odd one to turn, but it's still a fairly placid pitch.
It is. Wagner in again outside off stump through to the keeper. Do New Zealand really have belief here that they can get these 8 wickets? I'm not getting a huge vibe from them. Of course, once a wicket goes down, they'll be leaping about and everything. But I'm just getting a vibe from the players. It's impossible to be any more specific than that. But neither think that there's much chance of this happening. Neither side.
Well, even the coach doesn't think by the look of him.
Yeah. Wagner's in again. It's wide of off stump again. It's through to BJ Watling again. Dominic Sibley just looks at it, and it goes through.
That was a little bit shorter. Maybe Wagner is starting to wind up into human catapult mode. I mean, as far as Chris Silverwood's facial expression, that's just how he looks, as far as I can tell.
But in sport, anything can happen. I won't say what happened, but if anyone watched the last sort of few laps of the F1 race this afternoon,
I saw that.
You'll know that anything can happen, and it did.
But sometimes you've got to make it happen, though, and there was an element of making it happen on the part of some of them. That beats Sibley on the outside edge. There was just a tiny bit of withdrawal of the bat, and by making it happen, I don't know how many more spells Wagner's got left in him, but I really think it's worth going to full Wagner mode with a short leg, a leg slip, and going to short, even if it's just for 2 overs. Is Sibley really going to lift you into the mound stand 4 or 5 times?
Well, I'm more to the point. Do you care if he does, or try?
Yeah, do you care if he does? Yeah.
I think if Wagner's going to do that, he should go round the wicket from that very wide of the crease angle that he has. Sibley's quite a tall man. It's not easy to get out of the way of those sometimes.
I mean, he's taken 58% of his wickets with the short ball, and he hasn't bowled one here. That ball goes to Gully. It would be the grandstand rather than the mound stand. Now I see which end he's bowling from. It's a maiden, but it's a maiden that beat the bat but didn't do much else. 60 for 2.
And also, just on another sporting topic, as you predicted earlier, Federer has pulled out of the French Open to protect his body. Jay Grover says, GC commentators seem to love the word callow more than I like the word solipsism. Meh. Their place. I might agree with Gary's last opinion, but I want nothing to do with his vibes ever. You've got good vibes, Gary, haven't you? You've got vibes.
I occasionally have vibes.
I think with a lot of our listeners, the funny thing is when you meet people in the flesh, it's all very different, isn't it?
It is. This ball is defended back towards Saudi from Root, who has just 3 from 15. He can be a busy starter, but sometimes it just takes a little while to get the feet going.
He did in the first innings, and particularly it was Colin de Grandhomme who I think Hendo was absolutely right when he said, is a bowler I think Root doesn't enjoy facing, because he just wobbles it around a little bit. You can't get at him because there's no pace. There's not enough pace to work singles into the offside or the leg side. And he did get tied up. He looked a lot better when it took him sort of 25, 30 balls to really look comfortable.
Yeah, you just get the idea that Root hasn't faced a bowler like Colin de Grandhomme since he was sort of 14 and playing in the Yorkshire Leagues. This ball is defended, and it goes back past Southey to mid-off. At least Southey's made him play these first two deliveries in this over.
Well, I mean, really, since he faced Colin de Grandhomme in the World Cup final when it was so
well,
tight.
There is that, yeah.
So
what did he get? 7 off 28 or something like that?
Yeah, by some distance, the worst one-day innings I've ever seen Joe Root play. And the same for Owen Morgan, who also barely scored a run in the time they were out there.
Yeah, well, all one-day cricket will be populated by 11 David Hussies in the future, as I once said, as this ball is defended and off the inside edge, and so they're able to walk a desultory single. England 61 for 2. I mean, that was my theory with the 11 David Hussies all those years ago, is that bowlers would be between sort of 60 and 70 miles an hour, darting them in towards the legs so they can't free the arms. And that de Grandhomme's perhaps a tiny bit quicker than that, but if many of these batsmen, if they get no pace to work with and they can't rotate the strike and do the little deflections through the gaps in the offside.
You do get that in T20 cricket, but then it's more about its spinners bowling quickly and flat for boundary prevention. I think in one-day cricket that's not really happened.
As this ball was wide off stump, but Sibley elects to play that. I think he plays more from Southey than he does from Wagner, because he knows that Southey has the in-swinger, and therefore he's got to follow the ball a little bit with the bat, whereas Wagner very seldom brings the ball back in.
I'm not sure that I think I'd flip that completely the other way for this innings. Wagner has got a couple to come into Sibley, and then was starting to make Sibley play at balls that he was then able to get the ball the wobble seam and go across. Southey himself has said he doesn't really have a proper in-swinger. Well, he has that wobble seam ball.
Yeah, he has moved the ball into batsmen and presented more of an LBW threat, as indeed that delivery did move in a little to him. So, yeah, it depends what you see. I haven't watched absolutely every ball carefully, as very full ball to Root was worked backward to Sibley was worked backward of square there. That was definitely an in-swinger there.
Well, yes, it was. But the seam is canted for the outswinger. I wonder if this is a little bit of reverse swing.
Well, maybe it's reverse, but it was definitely an in-swinger, and that's why the arms went in the air, because the bat came down quite late on it from Sibley. But he got himself one backward of square. I know Southey has talked, and there's been a bit of, I think, kidology in it. Southey talking about not having an in-swinger, when really he does have it, but he seldom uses it. As this ball is straight as a die, though, on the off stump. Root defends, end of the over. England 62 for 2. New Zealand need 8 wickets.
We're due a change
we
now,
are due a change, yes. We're going to go with the rota as from 4:30 p.m, which makes absolutely no difference to any of you lot. The upshot of which is that Ed is meant to be on here, but isn't, which has not gone well. So we'll just what is meant to happen is that I'm moving to ball by ball. Ed is going to come in and summarise, and Nestlers is going to read some social media messages. Nestlers, why don't you read some social media messages while I try and locate Ed?
Okay, mate. Leia says that I don't care much about F1. In my opinion, the best motorsports are online esports, where people take F1 cars to rally stages in racing simulators and stuff like that. That would be fun in real life. Springsteen Cricket, I'm sure not associated with the boss, although I might be wrong, says this is a disgrace by ECB. Supporters deserve better.
That's not really how it works, is it? Wagner in full delivery and swinging into Dom Sibley, who blocks into the offside, and there is no run. I will now let Ed in.
Messi next tweet is marked it.
No, Nestlers, you're staying on. You're staying on.
Hey?
You're staying on, Nestlers.
Yes. Am I?
Yeah. We're going with the rota as from 4:30.
Oh, hang on. I can't. I've got to go. I've got to do something downstairs. I'm sorry. I didn't realise that.
We'll swap them all around from here, Nestlers, okay?
Letting sunshine in upon magic, the guerrilla cricket way. Back of a length, and Sibley forces off the back foot and takes a single up to mid-off, and there is no run.
Sorry, I misunderstood your message and planned something for half an hour.
Sibley has brought up his Cowan ton, his Domchery, his Denchery, call it what you want. He's faced 100 balls for his 22 runs, and if nothing else has got some time in the middle. He's only played 2 county championship matches this season because of a broken finger, so he hasn't had as much time in the middle as some of England's other batters this county season. We're joined by Ed and by Messi Jez. The early lunch threw everyone off.
Indeed.
3 slips in the gully, backward point, and an extra cover. Root batting considerably outside of his crease to Neil Wagner. Full delivery, swinging into the pads. Root blocks up to Colin de Grandom at mid-on, and there is no run. I don't know that there is much of an incentive for New Zealand to shake hands, to be honest. You might as well keep going and see if something happens. But how many more wickets do they need in the next hour to make this truly interesting?
Ed Crowley can't tell you because he's on mute at the moment.
I thought I was meant to be on mute.
No.
I have no idea what's going on. Messi.
Neil Wagner has just taken the bail off Chandrapal style and scratched a little line in the on the bowling crease, or the popping crease with it. In he comes, a poor delivery outside off stump. Root has nothing whatever to do with it. Through to the keeper, there is no run. Whatever the plan was, I'm sure it wasn't that. 63 for 2, a notional target of 273.
I think your role now is expert commentator and colorizer or something like that, Ed.
Oh, God. Listeners beware. There is no expert here.
I mean, as far as it's a disgrace to the fans and whatever, you'd be saying exactly the same thing if England had tried to go after this and collapsed.
Well, it's a disgrace. People are saying it's a disgrace to the fans than batting out the draw.
Yeah.
Well, people need to get their heads examined. This is Test cricket. It's not a tea party.
Oh, there he is. You sound like my dad.
These are the exact same people who complain that batting for the draw and disciplined defensive batting has gone out of the game, so there's no pleasing some people. Back of a length and blocked by Root into the offside, there is no run. New Zealand declared and made a bold declaration and gave them some time to win the game, and it's on them to do it.
Yeah. And I think the thing is what we're seeing to a certain extent is a product of the change in expectations brought about by white ball cricket. There's not an acceptance of the fact that sometimes the struggle is just to survive, and winning is a draw in that way.
I think that is an element of that, and there have been some very, very good chases, I think, made possible by the skills of one-day cricket. Full delivery from Wagner, swinging into Root, who defends off the inside edge onto pad, into the offside. There is no run. I think Neil Wagner has bowled 3 maidens in a row. No, there's 1 run off this over, but he's bowled 3 overs for 1 run since tea. Has looked the more threatening of the 2 New Zealand bowlers we've seen thus far. England 63 for 2, a minimum overs remaining of 3 of 37.
So Leah says... No, you won't. Leah says, I don't care that much about Formula 1. In my opinion, the best motorsports are online esports, where people take F1 cars to rally stages in racing simulators and stuff like that. Mark Zip says, obligatory. And when you meet them, GC fans, in the flesh, there's certainly a lot of flesh to meet.
Salvi, back of a length. Nicely played by Sibley, forcing it off the back foot into the onside. He plays that shot well through the mid-wicket region with the vertical bat. Fielded at mid-wicket, there is no run.
To which Jay Grover says, I have no doubt that if Gary and I met in the flesh, we would divide by 0 with Ponzi cross-cultural references and get on famously. I look forward to the day. Yeah, I have my doubts.
Dominic Sibley with his idiosyncratic style, with the bat face pointing towards gully, very closed bat face as well, and he blocked this to gully. There is to gully. There short mid wicket, and there is no run. So the toe of the bat points towards sort of fourth slip gully, and the bat face is very closed. So in that pickup, it's almost pointing directly at the ground. Does favour the onside, Dom Sibley. Not as strokeless through the offside as he was when he first started. I remember counting that it took him something like 69 balls to score his first run through the offside in Test cricket against New Zealand in Mount Maunganui, as he faces up to Southey. Full delivery, almost a Yorker. Sibley blocks it into the onside. There is no run. And you get the impression, Ed, that batting out for a draw for 2 sessions is very much in Dom Sibley's wheelhouse.
Yeah, I have to say there are probably things in cricket more boring than watching Dom Sibley bat in this sort of circumstance, but I haven't discovered them. It's an admirable technique and an admirable ability, but a bit like when you watch Cook make those big hundreds, you do sort of think, I do wish it wasn't happening though.
I was talking about this earlier with people as Southey is in to Sibley left alone through to the keeper. There is no run. I was talking about this earlier, that Andy Flower team was so good that people forgot how good it was.
Yep.
Complaining about, Alistair Cook scored all of those hundreds not flamboyantly enough.
No, I totally understand that sport is not just about pleasure. It's a contest, isn't it? And the results are ultimately what matters. But I have to say there aren't many Alistair Cook tons that I look back on watching with great fondness.
I never found him particularly boring. I thought he had some. I enjoyed.
He's got more shots than Sibley.
This is a foolish delivery. Sibley defends back to the bowler. There is no run. Another ball ticks away. Alistair Cook had a very clear method and was very good at it. And I rarely find sporting excellence boring, however it is achieved. But I do understand that it's not as it wasn't as obvious necessarily the visual appeal. Plus, there were a lot of moving parts in Alistair Cook's game.
Perhaps that boring's the wrong word. It's very admirable without necessarily being pleasurable. I mean, I would totally defend the need of players like Dominic Sibley and Alistair Cook, but it's not the same as watching KP bat, is it?
Southey in. This one threatens to come into Sibley. Plays it off the inside part of the bat down to long leg. They come through for a single. 1 run off the over. Sibley moves to 22, not that it matters. 23, in fact. England 64-4-2. 36 overs remaining for New Zealand to take these 8 wickets and seal a famous victory at Lord's.
So I just wanted to add to that. It seems to me that this is where guerrilla cricket comes in, because there is more to cricket than the game itself. It's a social event. Like, you went to Lord's yesterday. You probably spent a good deal of that time talking and socialising as
almost
well as watching. Yeah, there you go. And I noticed yesterday Ben Jones tweeting about how deadly bored he was watching the cricket, and I thought, well, that's because you're not listening to us, because you're not participating in the whole event. I mean,
Wagner in full, and this is driven by Sibley. It's as close as he gets to a fluent straight drive. Williamson will be able to chase this down because it wasn't that well timed, and they'll come through for 3. Dom Sibley moves to 26 and bringing Joe Root back onto strike. I do understand, and there is something, because the ground is only partly full. I do understand that, and it did look for periods of yesterday as though you weren't quite sure whether either side was trying to win the game particularly hard. I don't think that has been wholly true today. I think certainly New Zealand showed great proactivity in the first session, and then with the declaration, they just haven't bowled all that well, frankly. This is outside off stump. There's been quite a lot of that going on. 2 wide of off stump, left alone by Root through to the keeper. There is no run, and there's been very little incentive for England to do anything other than what they've done.
It also hasn't been, I think it'd be fair to say, and there are understandable reasons for it, hasn't been a great pitch, quite slow, not really conducive to stroke making or to bowling, I think, which makes necessarily, I think, the action a little bit more turgid.
I think that's fair. It's been very difficult it's been almost impossible to score runs quickly on, apart from New Zealand this morning, as Wagner is in, left alone outside off stump, well judged by Root through to the keeper. There is no run, and Devon Conway and Rory Burns. Conway scored a bit quicker than Burns did, quite a lot quicker until the last wicket partnership. But they've had to be incredibly patient to put together big innings. And then we've also seen that there has been a bit of, when the ball's been moving in the air, it's been very difficult to bat, but there's not been a lot off this surface. And Lords in the last few years has tended to be a bit like that, where it swings and can be very difficult to bat on, but the track itself is slowish and flattish.
Yes.
Wagner is in. I was wondering when this was going to happen. He's going to go round the wicket from very wide of the crease, making sure that Root has to play, and he blocks this into the offside. There is no run. It was Fuller, but he sent the short ball is coming. But I like this line of attack from Wagner. At least he's making Root play.
And I know you're going to accuse me here of being London-centric, Knackle, but I do have to say that I do understand it. The weather in May has been appalling, and it must have been very difficult to prepare this wicket. But it is probably not one that, really gets the blood pumping, is it?
It's not conducive to the highest quality of Test cricket, I'll put it that way. This is outside off stump and left alone through to the keeper. There is no run. And partly that's by... we hear that England wanted flatter pitches, I guess, to make their bowlers work a little bit harder and to try and give their batters a little bit of confidence and, preparing for stiffer challenges. And England should, in theory, have an attack that's capable of taking wickets on a flatter pitch, and I think they do, by and large. Conway batted extremely well in the first innings for that double 100. Apart from that, only Nicholls and Wagner batted with any sort of fluency.
Yes.
This one comes into Root, and he blocks solidly with bat and pad close together into the offside. There is no run. 67 for 2, another over ticks away. 35 overs for New Zealand to force this win.
So Niall is not happy. He says first time with Test with fans and they do this. Absolute wankers. Jay Grover says, Knackle, what words did you just use? Donchiri? Donchiri?
Domturi, as in the word dom, as in Sibley, and then Turi, and then Denturi. This is basic. You may have heard of the Cowan Ton, this social media phenomenon of a batter facing 100 balls. This then got reappropriated for Dom Sibley and then Joe Denley first, who kept on facing 100 balls for about 30, and now Dom Sibley, who also is a crease occupier. Have a change of bowling. Southey is out of the attack, and Officer Dibble is back in.
I turned to look, but I was gone. I cannot see my own reflection now. My body's gone, my face is gone. Become Colin de Grandhomme.
This is the Joe Root frustration device of Colin de Grandhomme. This is full outside off stump. A little bit of nibble away from the right-handed Sibley, but started way too wide through to Watling. There is no run. If I were BJ Watling, I would be coming up to the stumps for de Grandhomme, particularly to Root, who tries to bat a foot and a half outside of his crease. We're also seeing Mitchell Santner warm up, which I think is also a good move.
If I was BJ Watling, I'd be getting some pipes from the members' bar because this game is over, in my view.
As de Grandhomme is in, mullet flapping outside off stump, left by Sibley through to the keeper. There is no run. He's barely had to play at anything since tea.
Yes, I think, frankly, all the bowling today has been a little disappointing. Too much width. Well, the England bowlers were a little undisciplined, and the New Zealand bowlers are just too wide on the whole.
De Grandhomme in. Better delivery, forcing Sibley to play, but he plays it very comfortably up to mid-on. There is no run. A little bit of a gentle swing from de Grandhomme. A little bit too full, really. Yeah, I think Jameson's first spell, Jameson's been generally too wide. Wagner, I think, has been the pick of the bowlers by generally getting the ball to come back into the left to the right-hander. And there was a spell when Southey and Santner and then Wagner bowled very well to Rory Burns, but by and large, it has been a little bit too easy for England to do exactly what they wanted to do. I mean, that said, England have also probably let New Zealand bowl a little bit and not really put any pressure on them. But then again, as I say, the onus was not really on England here, unless they got an incredibly good start.
It's for New Zealand to make the game, isn't it?
Indeed, this is outside off stump and left by Sibley through to the keeper. There is no run. We've seen some. I was talking about chases that the Butler and Wokes chase against Pakistan, the Stokes chase against Australia, Kyle Mayers recently, as Matt Henry runs out with a lot of helmets for various close fielders. I think this is going to... Watling is coming up to the stumps. Good. I was going to say, this is going to rapidly resemble the closing stages of a club game when everyone's round the bat. So we've seen some chases that have been, I hope as well, chases that would only have been possible because of the extra skills and confidence in attacking batting learned through generations of white ball cricket. This is left alone by Sibley through to Watling, now up to the stumps, and there is no run. And maybe it has raised the bar. Probably quite rightly it's raised the bar in terms of scoring rates, but it does mean that games like this have become a rarity, which is probably a good thing as well. You wouldn't want more than a few tests every now and again.
I think
it's like this.
It's also changed spectator expectations.
Back of a length, and Sibley forces this into the onside, doesn't time it, and it goes up to mid-on. There is no run. Another over ticks by, another maiden by New Zealand. They bowled a lot of those, but most of the little threat. 34 overs remaining. New Zealand still need 8 wickets.
I'm delighted to say that Anna Forsyth is with us. She says, hello all, or as Ed would say, hello all! I'm shocked as anyone that there is a mute that can contain him. El Schopenhauer says, Wagner has just scratched the fuck out of the landing area with his left foot and then redrawn the crease with the ball as if it was a school cricket match. And I'm here to tell Neil I absolutely love it.
I was wondering if that was him readying the trebuchet to try and wang down a few, but no, it is going to be that change that we suspected was coming when we saw this long-limbed fellow warming up. He doesn't bowl in glasses, so we can't call him the bespectacled Baby or bespectacled Benno or whatever people were jokingly calling him. He has the contact lenses for the bowling. It's this man.
Santner baby, get some drift into the pads for me. Been an awful good Kiwi. Santner baby, and dart them in quickly tonight.
If you're New Zealand here, surely you get as many men round the bat as you can, just to try and make something happen.
Probably. Yes. The game is kind of meandered. I think they're only able to sort of shake hands after a bout. I think I've read somewhere 15 overs before the end. I sort of wonder if we're trying to get to that position as soon as possible from the perspective of New Zealand. I'm not sure they entirely believe that they can win this game.
There's a certain amount of wheeling around and hoping, which is fair. But yes, there's not been as much urgency as you might expect. I suppose that 8 wickets in a session is on a fairly placid pitch. You kind of do have that expectation. It's not a very crowded scene. There's only a slip and a short leg as Santner is in left arm rather round the wicket to Joe Root, who forces this off the back foot, and there is no run.
Messages makes a good point about spectator expectations, I think, and in particular in relation to these sort of chases.
As Santner is in, goes a little wider on the crease. Too short, Root cuts but can't beat backward point. There is no run. Well, I think it ties into cricket fans' expectations more generally. The bar has been raised for what is possible in terms of scoring in third and fourth innings.
And I think as well, there are just some people who want to complain about anything, don't they? That's the sad truth.
That's definitely true. I'm actually glad that we don't have all that many of those on Guerrilla Cricket, which I think are in terms of our treaties. Ooh, that spits out of the rough, and BJ Watling doesn't know what happens to it as it loops off his gloves and over a even more shot-looking Ross Taylor, and they come through for 2 byes in the end. So there's a little bit happening out of the rough on both sides of the wicket. Mitchell Santner has, along with Wagner, been in many ways the most threatening bowler. Yeah, that's not even that really out of the rough. It's out of the main part of the wicket, so dry is this pitch.
And we saw Joe Root turn one quite sharply, if I recall, in the first innings.
Yeah, we did.
And he's not a big turner of the ball.
No, although he was bowling with a much higher arm in this match than we saw in India, for example. This one turns, but from outside off stump, and Root leaves through to the keeper. There is no run.
But when I think of these people complaining, Messi, I just am always recalled of when I used to go. My dad used to take me to watch England play rugby. We would always sit one row across from these 2-3 guys in tweed hats who just complain incessantly about everything.
Santner in, tosses this up, Root drives, well fielded by Southey at extra cover, and short extra cover, and there is no run. Root trying to be proactive and push some singles into the offside, but not beating the field.
And you have to bear in mind, Messi, the time we're talking about when I was growing up, England were the best they've ever played at rugby, ever, and they were the best team in the world.
Slip short leg, shortish mid-wicket. This one just holds up, and Root blocks to point and then smiles in his annoying schoolboy way at Mitchell Santner. A maiden, another one wheels by, 33 overs to go.
And so Messi, I once said to them when I was about 7, I was so sort of incredulous, not really understanding the sporting spectators' mentality. I said to them, if you don't enjoy it, why do you keep coming? And they were taken aback by that. They are enjoying it, but they're moaning so much. So now we have a nickname in my family. We call anyone who complains about anything, or like those type of spectators, the Tweed Hat Brigade. That's what we call them. Because and I think those people who complain about chases not happening, and they're always the same people who complain people can't bat properly, they are, in my view, the cricketing equivalent of the Tweed Hat Brigade.
Yeah, they're the moaners of life, and they seem to get their satisfaction from moaning. I grew up in the 60s watching Test cricket.
De Grandhomme in full and swinging, and Sibley drives, and again doesn't look entirely comfortable driving through the offside. It squirts behind square. Conway retrieves on the way back to the third man boundary, and they come through for 2. I mean, looking at scorecards and scoring rates from the 60s, and then India and Pakistan in the 70s and 80s, you wonder how Test cricket survived.
Yeah, 3 or 4 draws in a series was not at all uncommon. So there was very little expectation of excitement, and when it came, it was just extraordinary.
De Grandhomme in down the leg side, and Sibley works this to leg. He's very comfortable with the ball there. Wagner will field on the deep square leg boundary, hurtles the ball back in, and they come through for 2. Sibley moves to 30.
Which was why when the Gillette Cup was introduced in 1963, it was a massive success.
It was so boring.
Well, yeah, I think there's a good deal of truth in that. Yeah. Sorry, I'm giving my opinions rather than reading tweets.
De Grandhomme in wobbles this outside off stump. Sibley withdraws the bat inside the line of the ball through to the keeper. There is no run. I think Watling's gone back to not quite standing up. Yes, he has. Not really sure why, to be honest.
Maybe there was that one that kicked quite a bit, wasn't there?
That was in the previous over from Santner. This is a foolish swinging delivery, and Sibley blocks back to the bowler. There is no run. Maybe it's a specific tactic to Root.
Yeah, makes sense. Anna Forsyth says she'd be delighted with the draw in the circumstances. Apart from Rory's knock and flashes from Robinson, we've been thoroughly undone here.
De Grandhomme in outside off stump, a poor delivery, left alone through to the keeper. There is no run. I don't think it's a news flash that New Zealand are better than England at Test cricket in the last few years. I think England are an improving team, and that India series is a weird one because, to be honest, I don't think many England teams would have beaten this Indian team at home. To be honest.
On those pitches as well. I mean,
I think even not on those pitches, to be honest.
Fair point.
When you look at what they did in Australia with a second 11 almost.
Last ball from De Grandhomme is pushed into the offside. There is no run. 4 runs off the over. England 73 for 2. 32 overs remaining for New Zealand to force this victory.
Ulysses Wilberforce says it's a bowl out. Bring on the next test. El Chopanos says Root sent back Colin de Grandhomme there because he was distracted by all-around awesomeness. His all-around awesomeness. Remember Walsh and Miller? Of course you do. He also says, okay, Colin de Grandhomme, here's your mission. Get BJ Watling a few chances at leg side stumping off a medium pacer. The best song from the Swan Song set.
I thought you were going to say give BJ Watling a bowl for a second. Then we'll know we're in trouble. New Zealand are not short of potential replacement wicket-keepers, so it could happen. Slipping a short leg as Santner continues. Backward points, short extra cover, regular cover. Mid-off, almost a wideish extra cover. Mid-on. I'll give you the rest of the leg side field. I think there's a man back sweeping on the leg side fence as Santner is in. A sweep from Joe Root. Haven't seen that for a one Test match. This is down the leg side, and don't think Root actually got any bat on that. Ross Taylor lumbers after it, and I was going to say hurls, lobs the ball back in. No, it is a leg bye, as it came off the pad of Joe Root. So 2 leg byes ensue. A little bit of drift from Santner, and forced Root into a slight misjudgment of length. In fact, 3 leg byes.
Does make me think that maybe Southampton is the best venue for the World Tennis Championship final.
Southampton.
Sad it's being played down there.
Southampton is a higher scoring, a slightly faster scoring venue. Does turn as well later in the day. Big boundaries.
Yeah.
Later in the test, rather. Big boundaries. As Santner is in. Second ball of the over. Very full, too full, and it's easy for Sibley to block to Latham at short leg, and there is no run as Sibley takes his helmet off, having got something in his eye, I think. All is well, puts it back on.
I mean, I think it's an interesting question about what we've learned about England from this game, because basically we came into the game.
Santner is in. This one goes on with the arm, or doesn't turn, more likely. This is forced off the back foot by Sibley into the offside. There is no run.
Because we knew coming into the game they've got a very good attack, and their batting, with the exception of Joe Root and Ben Stokes when he's playing, is a bit flaky. And we now leave this match having basically been on the back foot for the entirety of the game. We probably would have lost it, likely, if the rain hadn't come and washed out a whole day.
Santner gets this one to drift onto the pads, and it's blocked a short leg, and there is no run. I mean, you say that,
and we come out with.
I'm not sure about that, because England were only 2 down, were 111 for 2 or something when that. That rain sort of. I think it's just a completely different game if that rain doesn't come at that point. It's just very difficult to know. I do agree that this has been a slightly odd test match to draw any conclusions from, and I'd be wary of doing so. As
I think that point accepted. I think the only thing we've learned is really, Ollie Robinson's performed very well, as people thought they weren't sure whether he would.
Rory Burns is the best opener in England, which we kind of knew anyway.
Which we kind of knew. I mean,
last ball of Santner's over is down the leg side. Sibley works this to long leg, and they come through for the single. 3 runs off the over. England 77 for 2. Another over ticks by. 31 more for England to chase. We'll have a change now. I fancy, and we're going to have Gary Naylor coming on to ball by ball. I'm going to do some summarising, and Nestle Boy I think is going to jump in for Messi Jez.
Jay Grover 8 minutes ago talking about Katie Scott.
Paul.
Okay.
Well, he defers to Dr. Scott on most things, but especially on her view that any cricket of any standard makes me happier with its presence than it does with its absence.
Agree with that.
I think that's
now I'm muting myself.
I think that's fair.
Jeff Perkins says, I'd like to protest about your assertion that some people would just like to complain about anything.
Very good.
And Leia says, if they shake hands 15 overs early, depriving me of an hour of entertainment after day 3 was rained out, I'm going to find them, spike their energy drinks with both LSD and boner pills.
Well, here's Colin de Grandhomme coming in slightly ahead of his hair, and he's turned round the corner by Sibley, who collects himself 2 to Neil Wagner, who gets rid of a bit of frustration, I suspect, with a slightly overextended throw that BJ Watling gathers while backpedaling. England 79 for 2. I just feel that once England did not lose a wicket to the new ball, they could have driven some of the balls that they blocked as Sibley lets this go. They could have looked to rotate the strike, and they could have looked to transfer a bit of pressure back onto the bowlers. But England, I think it's the passivity of England that has disappointed.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of. I hope this isn't true, but psychologizing from afar is never easy. But fear of criticism.
Yeah, there might be, as this ball is just clipped into the leg side, and they'll take a single. Sibley's beginning to loosen up a bit here. I think he thinks the worst that can happen is now a draw. So he might play with a little more freedom, having faced 127 balls, I think that is, for his 34. So I don't think England can be criticised for drawing this game. I don't even think England should be criticised for not going for the win. I think they can be criticised for not putting themselves into a place where they could go for the win.
I think also that slightly more positive, or at least run accumulatory mode, I'll come to that after this ball.
Yeah, route defends, no run.
Makes it easier to save the game.
I think the game is saved earlier in that the opposition is in with a sniff for longer. But I have to say, I've been slightly surprised by New Zealand's, say, vibes, I was calling it the last time I was on. They haven't looked like a side who ever exhibited the self-belief to think they could take these 8 wickets. This ball is defended and there is no run. So whether a positive approach would have knocked New Zealand back, maybe they're as far back as they ever would have been. Maybe they are dreaming of being crowned world test champions. I don't know, but they certainly haven't looked like a side razor keen, full of plans and initiative and innovation to take these wickets as de Grandhomme bowls. Pretty much the delivery that I'm describing, that was blocked by Root to mid-on, where had that been driven, then it could have been a boundary. But he was not interested in driving the ball there. He was interested in blocking the ball, and that's just that one delivery. But that's been England's modus operandi really since the start. It's the end of the over, and we'll have some of your tweets.
Ulysses Wilberforce is pondering that Kane Williamson might put himself on for a few overs. It's a draw, lads. Al Armstrong Brown says, I'm affronted by the accusation that I, as a gorilla, don't exercise my chance, nay right, to whinge and complain. Cancels patron. Jay Grover says, oh blimey Ed, I hate complaints about sport, but I own several tweed hats. Madan Mohd Sharma is not very happy, I don't think. Jeffrey Boycott was considered a slow batsman once he was dropped despite scoring a double century. If Sibley plays more than 60 tests, he will surpass him in slowness. His career strike rate is 10 less than Pujara. Does he deserve a place in the England lineup?
I think it would be very difficult to make a case that in terms of county runs that Burns and Sibley do not deserve to be in this England team.
Yeah, we soon complain when we can't find openers, don't we, in Test cricket? Whether it's a draw or not, it's been a fantastic test, says Mayank. Harry Atkinson's with us. After an awful year, I'm just glad I've got you lot to keep me company, so any cricket will do me. Oh, thanks, Harriet. I've complained for this for a while, says Jay, but man for man, New Zealand are better than England. Why do English people have an issue with this? All right, I do know why, but I just wanted to kick the chair for a moment because it's silly.
I mean, I think any cricket fan knows that if you go 1-to-1 lining up the players, that New Zealand are a better side. Perhaps not all the way through from 1 to 11, but certainly the majority of those places. But it doesn't always work out on paper, does it? You know, chances come, chances go. England had a chance when Kane Williamson declared, but they had to engineer that chance into more of an opportunity, and they largely chose not to do so. And that's the case, right?
You'd never get upsets. Barry Goodman says, my tweet had unreasonable expectation is that you pack the batting with stroke players who can't dig in, that they could at least give the run chase a go.
Well, in theory, England have got that. They've got Crawley at 3, Root at 4. Is it Pope at 5? Isn't it Lawrence at 6? And Bracey at 7? I mean, none of them are there to block.
Well, Bracey he's not a blocker, but he is, looking to stats, he has the solidest defence in the county championship over the last few years in terms of defensive strokes played per dismissal. He's a top order batter.
Yeah, he's an 3.
He's not a. I'd say an accumulator, but not kind of somewhere in between Rory Burns and Joe Root in terms of. He's not a flashy player, but he's an accumulator. But certainly, you could say that Root is someone who's naturally scores at a quickish pace when batting well. Same with Pope, same with Lawrence, same with Crawley, same with Stokes. I know Stokes has a lot of different modes, but when he's playing well, Butler again, and that's true of most Test middle orders. Really, that's kind of what a Test middle order is meant to do, to be able to accumulate runs.
Yeah, I mean they're meant to get on top and then drive home the advantage. England haven't really exhibited a real urgency to get on top in this innings. They've exhibited a real urgency.
I would say any sense that they think they are on top.
Yeah.
There is and I understand why, in a sense of not wanting to lose the first test of the series and trying to ease their way back in, and they're in a situation where they didn't think they could win, and they probably don't have the personnel to bat at the kind of pace that they needed to. And
3.5 and over. 3.5 and over.
It was closer to 4, I think, when at the time of the declaration. Another man has gone in short now.
Santner's in, and it's a bit of an ugly swipe by Sibley. He leant on a ball that was outside off stump and sort of shoveled it, but he drove it at least and got it to the long on boundary for one of these.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I mean, he made that into a half volley because he extended his foot and it was there for the shot. New Zealand have bowled more half volleys than that one, and yet that's almost the first drive I can recall to the boundary in this innings. Now 40-odd overs old, as he comes forward and just suffocates this one. There's Sibley. There is no run.
First boundary for 18 overs.
Yeah. And not many of those boundaries have been driven. There's been a lot sort of run off the face to third man, maybe. So it's not an easy pitch to drive on. But you see, that's more or less a half volley, and he's blocked that.
I'm not sure about that. I think it did dip a little bit, and Sibley wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining now because the game is up. It almost doesn't matter now. But earlier on, there were half volleys that were blocked back as. Santner is in, and that is a leg stump half volley, and it's punched, which is fair enough, up the hill at Lords to the grandstand, and they're through for 2. And I hate to say this, but BJ Watling does his best. Jos Buttler there in taking a throw from the grandstand in front of the stumps, but didn't dive back to smash them over.
No, Matt Henry with the subfielder with the slightly underpowered throw.
Yeah, they've had a couple of underpowered throws. Devon Conway missed a possible run-out opportunity earlier. That looks like a half volley to me, and that was just sort of pushed to the man at short extra. But Mitchell Santner quite rightly is thinking, I've got a shot to nothing here. I'm going to flight the ball. I'm going to spin the ball. I'm going to try all kinds of stuff, because if he ends up with none for 60, what does it matter? As he's in again, Santner, and that's an enormously flighted delivery that was turned into a full toss, and it was just pushed by Sibley backward of points. The end of the over. England are 86 for 2. Root has 4. Sibley has 40.
Leia says, I'd like to think the Sikh guy at Lords with the Bluetooth headphones doing stuff on his phone is listening to Gorilla Cricket. If that is indeed the case, please tweet in, sir. Jake says, for heaven's sake, Gary, you sound like half-bright poly lecturer. Stop it, or double date with James Whale.
Half? What was that?
Half-bright poly lecturer.
Oh, a half-bright poly lecturer. Oh, I see.
Yeah. Polytechnic lecturer.
Yes. Well, that's dipping into the past.
We've had a lot of people on YouTube from New Zealand. John Wilkinson today, Ulysses Wilberforce, Shane Dietrichs. John Wilson again, all enjoying our commentary. Not sure they're enjoying the cricket as much as they might have done, but hey ho, you know.
On Ed's point about the cricket being a secondary consideration when you're at the Test match, I have to say that talking to my brother yesterday, who had spent the hours between 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock on Friday at Lords, he would tend to disagree. With the fact that much as he enjoys all of the accoutrements of Test match cricket, he actually did want to see some cricket when he was there, and he didn't, of course, in the washout. That's Yorker come half volley blocked by Root to Colin de Grandon, who's very tight at mid-on. I do like to see a mid-on saving one.
I mean, he's almost in a catching position.
He is almost in a catch.
Anyway, we do have a change of bowling, and final throw of the dice. Got to bowl a lot better than he has done in this innings. But I think in many ways this has probably been Kyle Jamieson's worst spell of bowling in Test cricket.
Yeah, and he has none for 8, and he's in his 11th over. That's a horrible delivery outside leg stump, and my batting skills were not particularly great, but I think even I might have got that to the long leg boundary. All it needed was any kind of bat on it, and there it went away.
1, 2, 3, 4. What's the mechanisms or etiquette for the captains just to say, right, we're done?
I think it's 15 overs left. I think.
Which essentially.
MS Dhoni once shook hands, didn't he, when India needed something like 45 or 15 overs?
But is it their decision on the field?
I think it's at that point, although I'm not sure. That ball's through to the keeper, no run. There certainly is a point at which captains are allowed to shake hands, whether it's 15 overs to go or not, I'm not sure. But surely the one that was most controversial, which I was watching at the time, was MS Dhoni, when we were sort of all looking around thinking, well, what's happening now? And then somebody said, oh, they've shaken hands, and India needed a relatively small number off a relatively large number of overs and still had 5 wickets in hand. But this is Jameson, who is in. It's outside off stump, and again, it's just defended by Root, and there is no run. Root has 8 off 41. He can't have had 8 off 41 very often in his Test career.
And he's not really tried to do anything other than... I don't know if we've... In the last few overs, what we've seen a lot of are not blocks per se, but net drives.
Yeah, net drives. Yeah, that's a good description.
You put bat to ball, there's a little bit more power in the shot, but you're not really that bothered where it goes.
There's no real backlift, no extension of the arms,
no attempt really
breaking of the wrists.
No attempt at placement, really.
Yeah, and that's been the case pretty much from the start. I mean, that's just a shocker of a ball in a one-day game. Would have been smashed wherever he wants it on the offside, but Root just lets it go through to the keeper, has a little giggle as BJ Watling gets a bit worried about the ball going through him and hitting the 3 helmets that are there. I mean, this is as dead can be, really.
Yeah, I think what it does show, and we've talked about this a lot, Nestlers and I have talked about this a lot, I think particularly in England, but it's true all over the world, Test cricket fans have been spoiled in the last few years a little bit.
Little bit.
I think we've seen some very, very good and competitive Test cricket in the last few years.
This ball is driven with a little more authority by Joe Root up the hill. I mean, it still wasn't timed particularly well. It still wasn't hit particularly hard. It goes 3/4 of the way to the fence, and they go through for 2.
And don't forget, we've lost a day to rain.
I know, but it was that was opened up to some extent by the declaration. As I say, I'm not going to complain about England getting a draw against one of the leading Test sides in the world. But
number one,
it's the fact that England at home did not give themselves an opportunity to chase it down. Had they been, let's say, 70 for 1 after 25 overs or something, then maybe after 20 overs, 70 for 1,
you can always pull back.
It could happen a bit.
You can always pull back if you then aren't able to get a few away, or you lose a couple of wickets. I know changing your gears isn't always easy and whatever, but I don't know. I'd be very interested to hear the various rationales from the various captains. I think New Zealand have sort of, I think they've almost not given it. That's not the right word. I think they've allowed themselves to get frustrated by the lack of help from the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, what England will say is that it was a difficult pitch to score runs on. None of our batters were at any point were fluent until Rory Burns sort of got his century and started smacking it around a bit. They'll say we just never felt it was on, and what we were concerned about was losing quick wickets, so we didn't want to ensure that we lost the game in a session where we've got every opportunity to go to Edgbaston and win. So they'll say that, and to some extent that's true, as a half volley is just punched to mid-off.
It's certainly true that England haven't really looked at any point like they were going to lose this game in this innings.
Maybe they'll say their cautious approach has been the reason for that. England are 92 for 2, by the way. I should have pointed that out. But at the same time, as I say, you kind of, even if you put the blocks up 4 down, then at least you've given it a go. But never really getting yourself into a position where you could play into an end game. It's a bit disappointing, as this ball was blocked by Sibley.
I very rarely get frustrated at Test cricket, partly because we've seen several years now of very good Test cricket, and in England, Test cricket on fast forward.
as Santner is in. That's a horrible long hop, and Sibley nudges it off his hip down to the vacant long leg area where Kyle Jameson runs around from deep square and sort of dismissively throws the ball back in as England jog an easy 2. Sibley goes to 42. England go to 94.
And I have very little patience with people who reflexively say that Test cricket is boring, but if at least one team isn't really pushing themselves and to the limit to win the game, or try to.
Santner is in again, and this ball is defended, no run.
I think most sport becomes a little bit, it loses something.
Yeah, I mean, I get frustrated when it becomes obvious that both sides would have shaken hands an hour ago now. Because what are they doing? Neither side are really trying to win here. Okay, there's a short leg and a silly point and a slip for New Zealand. Then you got Mitchell Santner bowling the ball a yard outside off stump. So that's gone away for byes. BJ Watling's not had the easiest of matches, and Devon Conway runs hard. He'll be man of the match, and they're through for 2 byes. I like sport when you can see there's there's a plan on the part of one of the teams or an individual to win. When it just drifts, when people appear to be not that interested, not that bothered, I wonder whether myself I should be that interested or that bothered. And I think this has been pretty stalematey stuff for a while now, as this ball again is very full on leg stump, and there's big open space in the leg side, and Sibley hits it into it and takes the easiest of singles. It's the end of the over. England are 97 for 2. I don't know what you're saying on Twitter, but Nestle Boy does.
Perhaps more importantly, I should say that there are a minimum of 27 overs remaining for New Zealand to force a miracle.
Well, the worse Jameson bowls, the less people jizz themselves over his height, says Jay. Root certainly didn't get into the spirit of the situation. And Peter Lloyd explains, they can shake when they are both less than 15 overs and 1 hour remaining, or less than 15 overs and 70 minutes, if not in the 4th innings by declaration. Jay says, Gary, you're doing my head in so much. I think I'm going to return to Pocklington Monastery and then meditate, eat vegetarian food, and build systems for the community until Halloween.
Oh, I see. Jameson in goes slightly wide on the crease. It's a half volley, and Sibley digs it out, and de Grandhomme runs back from his close-in mid-on position to an orthodox mid-wicket, and Fields. Sibley goes to 44.
The Kiwis on YouTube are now getting so bored that they're talking to each other about the weather.
Wow.
It's quite cold there at the moment, by the sound of it.
Well, it is winter.
Yep. -1 up on the plateau in Wairaruru. I think I really apologise if I haven't got that right.
Joe Root's on strike. He's got 10. And Kyle Jameson is bowling to him. A little bit of in-swing for Kyle Jameson, but Root just covers up. Bat almost hidden behind his front pad. But Bat does hit ball, and there is no run.
Yeah, I mean, I will. You described the leg side flick having come off a terrible ball. I'd probably rather Jameson be bowling leg stump half volleys than bowling a foot outside off stump.
Yeah, I mean, it was way outside leg stump was the problem with that one. I've got no problem with him bowling at the stumps and conceding some runs on the leg side. It's definitely better than hanging it there outside off stump. That's not a bad ball. It was length on off stump, but Root for once played a Root type shot there. It's a very skilled sort of late cut from Root, who gets 4 runs for his troubles.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I mean, he and Williamson are the 2 best in the world at scoring backward of square on the offside, and he plays that shot better than most. Possibly better than anyone right now, Joe Root, where he stands up tall and he can guide that shot anywhere between backward point and very fine third man at will.
It's just a blameless ball, because that was about a 5th stump line. It was length, and Root just guided it really. He attempts to do the same thing, but ball's a little fuller and therefore went a little finer, and the man at Gully did his job and gets a double pat on the back from Tim Southee for his troubles. England are 102 for 2.
There are some similarities with Michael Atherton, not just in the case of him being groomed for leadership, but of taller men who play the cut shot very well.
Yeah, Boycott played it. He's not as tall as Root or Atherton, but Boycott played that sort of punch come cut behind point very well as well. As Jameson's in and Root covers up to a ball that's a tighter line and just goes into the offside, and it is no run. I remember seeing Zach Crawley play absolutely fantastic shot in the innings he made, the 74 or so I think he made before his monstrous double 100 against Pakistan, and he went onto his toes and he punched a length ball that was on about fifth stump like a rocket backward of point, and I thought, God, this kid's got talent, because you have to be pretty good to play that. Where he hasn't got so much at the moment is judgment, Crawley, as this is a short ball from Jameson, and Root Swivel pulls that down to Wagner at deep backward point, who returns. It's the end of the over. It was a single to Root. England are 103 for 2.
Leah points out that New Zealand is also in the roaring 40s. That surely can't help in winter. I must go there one day.
Yes, some amazing landscapes. I'd just go there to drink the wine, really. That would do for me.
Yeah, it just looks such a fantastic place.
Is it where's the windiest city in the world?
Wellington. Wellington.
Yeah, Wellington, isn't it? The top of South Island, isn't it?
No, Wellington is the bottom of the North Island.
Oh, right, yeah. It's either side of those straits, one side or the other of those straits, isn't it? And I grew up in a very windy part of a windy city in Liverpool, so I don't much care for the wind, but I'd be happy to check it out. Sent the bowls outside off stump and lets the ball go through to the keeper. And if you're wondering why we're talking about wind, it's because England are 103 for 2 and the game is drifting.
Well, I've got some normal news for you.
Oh, normal news, I'll take that, but after the next ball, because here is Mitchell Satnav with the slip and the short leg, and plays and misses at that one, and then rehearses the shot again, being I should hit it there.
The Duchess, Meghan and Harry have announced the birth of a baby daughter, Lilibet Lily Diana Mountbatten Windsor.
Dear.
There you go, normal news.
Damn good advertising agency, if you ask me. That was a horrible ball from Santner, with a horrible shot from Joe Root, because I think, Sean, that was more like a kind of a gassy return of serve there, because it was so high. Root sort of played a top spin forehand at it, and it went to mid-wicket, who sort of fumbled the fielding. It's not very good cricket at the moment, is it? It really isn't.
They're not taking the pit, are they?
He goes back to this one, does Root, and just chops it to the man at gully.
Santner's just tossing a few up and seeing if Root will do something silly.
Yeah, I think that's right. And at the moment he's choosing to do something Sibley, which is to defend his stumps. He's in again, is Satnav. I think that was I think it might have been a leg break, or maybe a carom ball or something.
It just didn't turn. It just didn't turn. Hit the leather, didn't turn.
Took Root on the pad. It's the end of the over. Mitchell Santner has a blood coming from his spinning finger, which is not good, and may the ICC regulations about not putting sweat on the ball. Can you put blood on the ball? As this is defended by Root. It's the end of the over. England are 103 for 2, and
Santner cut his spinning finger in the intra-squad game. There was a minor doubt coming into this game, and it seems like he's opened it up again. Well, and you can't put saliva on the ball. COVID is not.
Yeah, saliva. You can put sweat. So what can we do about blood?
COVID is not, as far as I'm aware, a blood-borne illness.
No. So maybe. Although it's not a saliva-borne illness either, to be fair. So.
Are we due a change now?
Are we?
No, 4 more minutes, because they came back at 5 past.
If anyone wants to do my last stint, which is supposed to be now, I'd be very happy for them to do so. It just gives me a little more time to get to.
No, your last stint's at 6:30 till 7, Gary.
I can't do that one for sure.
I don't know if this game will be going. Anyway, we have twin spin of sorts.
Yes, we do.
Well,
we do. I have to be at Lisson Grove, which is literally round the corner.
There's no one better than Marty Grove. really great, but tell me, I wanna know, have you ever seen Kane laying strokes every which way?
Yes, indeed, it is Kane Williamson. So we're staying with this setup for another over, Knuckle.
That's right, and then we're going to, well, it's supposed to be Ed, yourself, and Jez.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, but I have to get off at 6 o'clock, as I say, because literally a 10-minute walk from Lord's is where I'm going tonight. So that was an opportunity that came up only on Friday evening. So Kane's in, and I'm not sure how to describe that ball. It's sort of pitched on middle and leg and spun down the leg side, and BJ Watling took it as Sibley watched it go.
Bit of rock trivia for you, Gary.
Oh, this is down the leg side, and Sibley swivels that down to the sprawling Wagner, who saves an all-important 4 there, and returns the ball to the applauding BJ Watling, and Sibley gets 2 runs. Neil Wagner has a fan club there who've been on the Pims for the last few hours by the looks of it.
I think that's the sort of thing that gets cricketers described as wholehearted.
Yes, it does, and injured. As Kane's in again, and again, Sibley just nudges it down to Neil Wagner, who will no doubt get some applause from his fan club again. The wholehearted Neil Wagner. They just walk a single in this case, and the applause is returned by Wagner. I rather liked the way Wagner ran after Rory Burns to shake his hand as he was walking off yesterday. I thought that was very decent of him, because no doubt he'd been giving him a few verbals. But once the battle is fought and won and lost, it's time to shake hands and be friends. Another shocking delivery from Williamson, but Root misses out on it. I don't really know how, because surely when he was a 14-year-old and playing in the Yorkshire Leads, he'd hit that for 4. But scoreboard does not advance, and Root sweeps this one. Fine. Will Wagner get to it? Yes, he will. He's running round. He's getting a lot of work, and the wholehearted Wagner returns the ball, and they're through for 2. So flurry of scoring from some pretty average bowling. England 108 for 2. 1 ball left in this over. 5 conceded so far.
Listen, Grove, Gary, Dole Office is where Joe Strummer met Mick Jones and Paul Simonon, and they formed the Clash.
Ah, fantastic. Well, that's
and
worthy of a blue plaque. As would you believe it, Neil Wagner fields this ball from Joe Root.
You say that. Joe Strummer was in a squat in Lisson Grove, and there is a blue pack on the wall of the building where the squat was.
Well, if I walk past it in about an hour and a half's time, I shall look. 109 for 2, and that's a 53 partnership for the third wicket, Joe Root and Dom Sibley. 18 for Root, 28 for Sibley, and that leaves, 4 extras. And I think Mitchell Santner, is he going to continue? I think he is going to continue. Yes, he is. Are we going to continue, or are we swapping?
No, we're going to switch to Ed, Gary, and Nestlers.
Messi.
Jez, sorry.
Yeah.
Messi, and the next one is from Jeff Perkins about 2 minutes ago.
So Ed's on the ball by ball.
He's supposed to be.
He's not there yet. When he's there, I shall hand over. This ball is nurdled backward of point by Joe Root, who helps himself to a couple of runs. This is very much padding the averages. If Ed doesn't come in the next ball, Knuckle, I'll hand over to you. Root has 20. Mitchell Santner looking entirely at ease, with blood issuing from his digit, is in again, and this is down the leg side, as so many deliveries have been in the last 10 minutes or so. And Root sweeps and runs hard and gets 2 for his troubles. He now has 22. Sibley has 47. England have 113 for 2. Santner coming in off 3 or 4 strides. He gets a horrible high full toss, does Joe Root, and he just says, "I think I'll have 4 runs square, please," and hits it for 4 runs square.
1 2 ka 4, 4 2 ka 1. My name is Lakhan. My name is Lakhan.
Well, Ed, I'll hand over to you, but if you can find better adjectives to me to describe this dross we're watching, then good luck to you.
I'm
I've
sorry.
changed my background appropriately.
It's on the back foot, pulling that round the corner, and they'll come through for 1. I'm sorry, Knackle, that I keep missing. I don't have this updated rotor. So obviously I'm completely all at sea. But luckily I was ably assisted by Gary Naylor, doing a much better job than I would have done for those 3 balls, and as a consequence I didn't have to watch them, which was a real pleasure. Right, so Mitchell Santner is really writing the last rites of this game. That's bowled outside the off stump. It turns a little bit on the way through to BJ Watling, but there's still no runs. How many overs have we got before this can be called off?
I think theoretically it could be now. I think we've probably just started the last 15 overs, haven't we?
Oh, I don't think so.
You should be so lucky, messages.
Of course, we've got the... Oh, yeah.
Santner bowls and Sibley defends off the front foot. No run.
So let me be honest and say I've got no fucking idea.
I think we've still got at least 10 to go.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ.
23 left, so another 8 overs. I'm here.
Right. Well, it's 118 for 2. It's the end of Santner's 9th over. Roots on 27, Sibley's on 47. So at least he can get the Rays batting in 8 overs. He should just about get to his half century, Dom Sibley. Just get there.
He'll treasure it forever, won't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He won't want to be 49 not out, will he?
So Jeff Perkins asked, wasn't Gary the windiest kid in the windiest part of Liverpool?
I was the long windiest kid, that's for sure.
The long windiest.
That is it.
Very good.
Your self-deprecating humour is appreciated, Gary.
I've had years of practice.
Yeah, you'd be unbearable otherwise. Yeah, Jay Grover says, my parents went to New Zealand and Madar as an inveterate sightseer. He was worried we were going to get bored. He just sat outside and went for walks all day. He still talks about the place with a happy eye glaze.
Mitchell Santner's gone off. I don't know why. Perhaps
Finger.
He watched something more interesting.
He had blood issuing from the spinning finger. So.
And Kane Williamson has brought himself on to bowl.
No, he was on last over.
Oh, well, you can tell how closely I've been paying attention. Anyway, sweep. Roots down to fine leg for a single. Now, I'm afraid the final sessions of these games, and you were remarking on this before, Jeremy, it used to happen a lot more back in the day, less so now. It really has been a bit of a meanderthon, hasn't it?
Yeah, although it did bring some joy to my heart just to see Kane Williamson coming on. I really like that man so much.
Yeah, he's such a nice fellow, and he looks like he's enjoying himself, as he always does when he's on the cricket pitch. Williamson over the wicket, on the back foot, Dom Sibley tucks that round the corner, thinking about 2. Will they come back for it? Sibley wants to, Bro Root's not interested. He moves to 48.
I think Neil Wagner has fielded every ball that Kane Williamson has bowled in his 8 to date. I think he has. Yeah, I mean, obviously, who doesn't like Kane Williamson? Such a decent bloke and everything else. But I do think he needs to do something about that haircut. He doesn't need to de Grand Homme it, but he definitely needs to do something a little more with it than he is. You'll be old a long time, mate, and your hair will fall out soon. So make use of it while you've got it, Kane. That's what I'm saying.
You're not advocating a mullet, are you?
Not a mullet.
Williamson bowls, and that's heaved by Joe Root into the leg side, down to Neil Wagner. Plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Another single.
I can see you spent your time in Europe well, Ed.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you.
Well,
this is the sort of thing that people in Europe...
Are you back from Brussels now?
Yeah, I'm in London. But this is the sort of thing that people, when I was in Luxembourg, who were French, would say, you know, this is what cricket's like, isn't it? But actually, it can be a lot more interesting than this. Williams has gone round the wicket and bowls a massive wide down the leg side, which hasn't been called because Sibley didn't look to play it. But there is a short leg in, so perhaps thinking that Sibley might try and force his way to his 50. some hope for us. That's defended off the front foot. Kane Williams' fourth ball, and there's no run.
It's ironic when you think about the last time these two met at about this time of night at Lord's.
Yes.
Batters were rather different.
This one's on Sibley's pads, and he does turn that round the corner. Again, he's jogging through for a single. Wagner probably fielded that. We haven't seen him pick the ball up, but he always does. So
I remember someone reaching for the phrase plus ça change, plus à la même chose. At least I think I remember this. It may just be that I wanted it to happen and I can't work it out in my mind. Anyway, if it did happen, they reached for that phrase, and instead of getting plus ça change, plus à la même chose, came up with voulez-vous coucher avec moi, which is the same thing at all.
That's a long stretch.
You'll be very careful with your French, haven't you?
Oh, you do. You don't want to get your French letters mixed up, that's for sure.
It was the end of Kane Williams over, 122 for 2. The target 273, totally notional. Neil Wagner is coming on to replace Mitchell Santner.
Jeff Perkins asks a very pertinent question.
Neil Wagner. He's my boss. And when he takes 5 wickets in an over, it was moida.
Perko wants to know, how can we hope for edification without Ed?
Well, I'm back. What do you want, Perko?
he wants you to edify him.
Over the wicket and left, well left by Sibley on line, as that's gone over the off stump. And there's an ooh and an ah from Neil Wagner, but it was a bit too short, and Sibley recognised that, so let that float through harmlessly to BJ Watling.
Ed, I used to do a job which necessitated me going to Brussels about every other Thursday. And in the days before the Eurostar, the flights with Sabina were just horrible. But once the Eurostar arrived, it was much easier. But I have to say, I found Brussels the most uninspiring and boring of cities. Maybe it was the nature of my job there, sitting in meetings, but there wasn't much outside the Grand Place.
Oh, as Sibley is beaten outside the off stump, and that's gone through to Watling. There's no run. I actually was in Luxembourg City.
Oh, where?
Not Brussels. Not Brussels, but we went to Brussels on a trip, and the Brussels itself, I don't really know because I only was there for about a day. Luxembourg City is beautiful. You just can do it in 3 hours. You can do it all in 3 hours. And I was there for 3 months, so that's a long hour. It's a long hour, 1 hour per month.
Yes.
Yes. Luxembourg, beautiful place and very interesting city. Yes,
Grand
very.
Duchy, isn't it?
But the problem is, one of the problems, as Wagner is in and Sibley is again, quasi beaten outside the off stump. You might say he drew his bat inside the line of that. I think he probably played at it. But without wanting to go all Fred Titmus and sounding like a rabid Brexiteer, the problem with Brussels is that everyone there is absolutely loaded because the only people who the only things there are. Yeah, everyone's absolutely loaded. It's just like there's Amazon, there's all the firms that are used to avoid tax and all the lawyers who help them do it, the accountancy practices, and the European Commission, as Wagner is in, and that is defended on the front foot by Sibley. And and there's a third European Parliament there that even the EU don't tell us about. Imagine how angry the Daily Mail would be if they discovered that. But anyway, the problem is the only people there are either incredibly wealthy or they're all the people like me who are interns basically working for these companies or in these places, and so it's impossible to do anything because everything is so expensive. It's impossible to get a reasonably priced meal that you could live off for quasi normal salary. So it really is it's incredibly safe as Wagner bowls, and that's left outside the top by Sibley.
The other reason is that nobody's spending their own money.
So true.
I once asked my brother what the how to succeed in life. He said, make sure you're spending other people's money. And you are with the expense accounts in Brussels because nobody's picking up those tabs.
So here's an example with Luxembourg for how loaded it is. Okay,
so Luxembourg's the same, yeah.
Yeah, so even when I got there, they were just about to make all bus travel free, just completely free for everybody.
Yeah.
And then when I got there, but it wasn't for the first month or something. Well, they were going to in 6 months' time. When I got there, as Wagner is marking drawn up and that bowls on Sibley's pads and Sibley tries to nurdle it through to get his 50. I got there and I kept trying to pay for bus fares, and the bus driver's like, "Don't worry, don't bother paying." And I was saying, well, I don't understand. There's a thing on the bus that says a ticket costs €1.50 or whatever. They kept saying, no, we don't need your money, we don't need your money. I was like, what the hell is going on? I know it's not free. I've looked this up. They were like, it's coming free in 6 months. I don't worry about it. It's like, what public, what public sector person could afford to just refuse cash when it's literally? I just couldn't believe it. It was extraordinary. So I stopped paying. Yes, Waz is going to complete his over, and that's on the off stump. Sibley will remain on 49. 1, 2, 3 for 2.
Before COVID, Nestle's had a 10 bus driver who used to tell him that it's all right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't really speak French, so they kept saying, "No, you not pay" in English, and I said, "No, you do. I've looked this up. It's free soon." He was like, "Don't worry." It's like it's bizarre.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but that was about the only thing you could afford to do was take the bus. Oh, it's a no ball from Neil Wagner, which is retrospectively called. So we've had to go back. It's not the end of the over. There's one added. Scores 1, 2, 4. Bloody hell! This game will not die. Will it? Game won't die. Why won't it die?
I think it was the Schleck brothers, who were cyclists in the early 2000s, Andy Schleck and Frank Schleck. I think they were Luxembourgese. But they, I think, spoke French, but they also, their mother tongue was the kind of Luxembourgese, which is the kind of local, kind of like Switzerland has Romansh or something. It's kind of a half and half language. Did you have to essay a little bit of that, or
no? They don't. But basically, they don't speak it in the city. I mean, I'm going to get called a massively. This is an Englishman's view abroad. That ball is left outside the offside by Dom Sibley. 49 not out. That was great. They had to bowl that again. We learned a lot there. 1, 2, 4 for 2. Sorry, I know. I'm sure there are tweets to catch up on, but they don't speak it because, unfortunately, because basically the actual indigenous people live outside the city, and they've let the city for the let the money flow in. So they don't speak French. That's the dominant language in the city. Right. Anyway, sorry, messes.
So, actually, on YouTube, we have some cricket-related questions.
Oh, okay. I'm not interested now. Let's move on.
Yeah.
First off, from John Wilkinson, kudos to the ground staff for producing what sounds like a very lively pitch. Even on our day 5 pitch, still getting some swinging, decent bounce out of it. I doubt that. I'm not with you on that. Dara Azizi says, how is Sibley batted? Good enough to retain his place, and what changes, if any, would you make for the next test match? And as he says, it may not be exciting cricket, but at least it's cricket.
Well, there's some hammering being going on the pitch. We've got another brilliant delay, but I unfortunately have to step out for 1 second while Gary just answers that question. I'll be back in 1 second.
Yeah, it's very hard to know about the changes because there's all the kind of COVID and quarantine and whether they'll need a kind of intra-squad match to get the players available, and of course there's the Ollie Robinson position, which as yet is unresolved. What punishment? And some people think he needs hanging, drawing, quartering, and other people think he needs told he was a bad boy when he was a bad boy, and there's anything in between, up to and including a suspension. So Robinson certainly wouldn't be dropped as a result of his form, and I think one thing that has shown in this match with Robinson and Burns is that they weren't really rested from many county matches. They played quite a lot of cricket, and they look much more fluent than some of the players who've played a little bit less in the way of cricket. Although, to be fair, quite a lot of this England team have played county championships, so I'm going to continue for a little bit as Root gets a full toss that he says, where shall I hit this? Oh, I think I'll hit it for 4 down to deep square leg, and does so. He goes to 33. England go to 128 for 2, and my voice morphs into Ed Benson's.
Look, of course I leave, and the only bloody boundary happens. I'm sorry, I had to go and deal with the door, the perils of zooming in.
I'll have to go as well at 6 o'clock on the dot. I'm sorry about that, but I do have to get across town.
Santner bowls to Root, and that is driven rather lovelily, but straight to the man fielding at short cover, and there's no run.
What strikes me from afar is how big a hole Stokes leaves when he's not there.
Yeah.
Correct. England looks so light on the batting in this game because they couldn't even pick a spinner. The quality all-rounder really does balance the side as Santner is into Root, and Root sweeping in front of square. That's a lovely shot, and I'm going to get a boundary too. How wonderful.
My name is Lakhan.
It's a lovely delivery, swept on length. It was a little bit too full from Mitchell Santner. In fact, it was a full toss. I didn't even quite catch that. And Joe Root just pumped it forward of square on the leg side. So he has moved on to, I believe, 37. The score was moved on to 132 for 2. So England about halfway there.
And they only need 7 runs and over from here.
Game on with Dom Sibley at the crease anyway. Mitchell Santner bowls round the wicket. That's swept forward of square. But he's trying to do the same thing again. But there's a man now out fielding on the mid-wicket boundary. And there is only a single for Joe Root. So Sibley will now be on strike. Can he get to his half-ton?
When I was in Brussels, I had to speak a fair bit of French. But mostly I was saying plus lentement s'il vous plaît. Because, of course, it was coming at me a little too quickly. But yeah, I mean, English widely spoken, as they say. But yes, when you're in another country, you have to try a little with the local.
I must say, I felt very embarrassed when I was there at how poor, because I was working with a lot of us. Santner bowled Sibley, who leaves outside the off stump. There's no run. I was working with a lot of people from Finland and various Scandinavian countries, and they could all speak about 5 languages perfectly. And I felt quite embarrassed at my and I think that's reflective of the English in general, poor facility with languages. Santner goes in to complete his 10th over. That is all driven off the outside edge to the man fielding at gully there. And Sibley just trying to seize the carrot ball. It is, in any event, him still stuck on 49. He won't be on strike for the next over. Joe Root will be, who's on 37. It's the end of the over, and the scoreboard has disappeared, so I'm trying to get quick info up. But I'm going to stop talking. Gary, what's the score?
Well, I can't see it either at the moment.
Well, it's 133 for 2 with 20 overs remaining. Leah says this is giving her eye cancer. Jeff Perkins says, rather than despairing, Messi, you should look on the next 10 overs as an opportunity to exercise your skills without worrying about being interrupted by the urgency of the match. A bit like when it's raining, really. And he reckons that cricket was really invented by the Neanderthals.
Oh, very good.
Very good.
Sometimes we get lots of French people in our shop where I work. I'll break off.
Wagner bowling over the wicket to Root, leaving outside the off stump. You shouldn't have stopped your story, Gary.
They sometimes have these kids that they're of course engaged in a constant argument with in very rapid French. But if I ever want to get a French kid's attention, when a shop assistant speaks French to them, believe me, they do an Oliver Hardy double take at you. They're very surprised that an English person who is not a teacher can speak French, even as badly as I speak it.
Oh gosh.
Oh, we can generate excitement by looking at the GPL, Knackle.
Well, we'll have a look at that after this ball, as Wagner is in to Root. That's on the pads, flicked in front of square. It's actually very, very well timed from Joe Root. There's a chase on here. Will the fielder wheel it in? Yes, he's just done so. That's good work by, I believe, that is Conway running out to the mid-wicket boundary, and he has saved 2. Root moves to 40. Messages, the GPL.
Yeah, I haven't got it up. I'm sure Knackle's having a look right now. Nestlers wants to order a curry, but can't until he knows it's not going to be on air. Joe Grover says there was huge mental violence and drug problem in 2004. Hasn't been there since then. I'm presuming he's talking Liverpool. I didn't
Brussels,
meet very
maybe.
loaded people there. Oh, it was Luxembourg he's talking about.
Maybe Brussels, but we've seen the best incident of the whole match while that was going on.
Wagner is defending off the front foot, and there's no run.
Jazz, you were distracted, but we must describe it. Ed, could you describe what we just saw?
No, I think you should do it, Gary.
Well, Joe Root and Dominic Sibley, whilst taking that 2 to deep square leg, completely ran into each other and bounced off each other with chests, chest to chest, like they were kind of dude, where's my car or something like this. Absolutely extraordinary how they managed to
yes, there was a no ball. There was a no ball.
Yeah, all important no ball, but that was very funny.
As Wagner hits Joe Root on the pad. That looked out to me, and it is
out.
Umpire Goff has given him out LBW. And Neil Wagner has got a second wicket, and he's deserved that. They're going to walk into the middle and see whether they review it. I suspect Joe Root probably will, because why the hell not? Probably be more interesting than watching another over anyway. But they're sat there, and they are going to review it.
Ooh. Only possibility is if it's slightly high.
I was definitely in. Were you definitely in? I don't know.
Right, well, I'm known to be an outer in a cricketing sense, and that is... that is... in my view, absolutely, despite that, Sam Trout plum.
Yeah.
We're seeing Ultra Edge, he hasn't hit it. Neil Wagner's bowled really well today, probably the only member of the New Zealand attack who's bowled really well. And he's got one to tail back in on the leg stump line to Joe Root, and if that isn't hitting at least part of the stumps, then I'm retiring.
Yeah, straight in the middle and leg.
It's hitting the inside half of leg stump, so that is out. Joe Root has got to 40 in his usual fluent way, and then he's perished, and England are 136 for 3.
He should have been forward to that, really, Root. It's a misjudgment. It's a lack of concentration, I think. I think, like everyone, he just wasn't really thinking that hard about the game there. But he's disappointed because, you know, who wants to throw away a really easy red inker, and that's what he's done.
I wonder if that kept a little bit low, Gary. A little bit.
He did keep a little bit low, but if he was forward, we'd never have noticed that because he'd have just just hit the bottom of the bat. It's because he went back, the ball had that further to travel, and we're expecting it to bounce, and it didn't. But not a look, not a word to his batting partner. I think they'll be giving Joe Root, giving him 10 yards of space in the dressing room for the next 10 minutes or so until he calms down. But a hat-trick would be interesting now.
Indeed,
oh my God, yes.
One gets two. Jeff Perkins wants to know what you did to supplement your income. What nefarious activities you got up to survive in Luxembourg, Ed?
I didn't. I just ate mainly beans. I lived in a I think it was a 10-person house with people ranging who worked from sort of interns for Amazon, some people who were there on stages, some people who were I'm trying to think of the correct term, on Erasmus, which has now been cancelled. That's great, we're out of that. Great that we've left the EU as the new batsman comes in. It's the Pontiff who'll be facing Neil Wagner, who beats him on the outside edge. A good delivery from Wagner. This one didn't come back in, it went straight on and went through to Watling.
Leah was in Luxembourg once with the
bowling's loose. He'll score some for ya. Give me some hope, we don't wanna lose. Work willing for ya. Give me some ball that bounces over his head. If Johnny gets hurt, he'll go behind the stumps.
Ollie Pope
is leaving a ball from Neil Wagner that's wide outside the off stump, and there's no run. Gary's got to go at the end of the over, we've been told.
Yeah, sorry about that. I got this chance to review, and I want to support as much of the theatre that's starting up again as possible with reviews. So I'm going to head off at the end of this over. I don't think I'm going to miss much, but I said that when I went to the pub in 1981, and Bob Willis got 8 for 31 or whatever to win the Headingley Test. So I have got form.
It's a funny old game. Last ball of Wagner's 12th over. That's tail back in a little bit, and Pope is correctly defending on the back foot. That's the end of the over. 136 for 3. Dominic Sibley will be trying to get his 50 at the other end of the next over, and Gary Neighbour is waving goodbye.
Yeah, thank you very much for listeners. Thank you very much to fellow gorillas, especially Knuckle, who's been driving things all day. Thank you.
Enjoy the incomprehensible opera. Leah says she was in Luxembourg once with a descendant of General Rundstedt. He ran around, pointed at stuff and shouted, and my grandpa destroyed that, and he turned that into rubble. He got a good beating that night and didn't talk much after that. Stephen Meltz reckons he can't contain his excitement. El Schopenhaus says Wagner's landing area, trademark and copyright protected. Warren says, any thoughts about commentating on the birth of Lilibet? Ball by ball or blow by blow, please. Another Royal popped out. There you go. Does that cover it, Warren?
Guerrilla gynecology. As Tim Southey is into the attack, replacing Mitchell Santner, who has an injured finger. Dominic Sibley, who's been on 49 for about a year, leaves alone through to the keeper, and there is no run. I shall jingle up Tim Southey. We're going to go with myself, Knuckle Impande, Ed Benson, and Neste Boy for the next half an hour, and see if we need more. Here is Tim Southey.
It's only a whimsical notion to fly with Tim Southey to tonight. I probably won't fly with Tim Southey. Then again, I'm just a
In comes Southey to Dominic Sibley, who blocks this into the onside and runs through for a single. They, for some reason, decided to try and take two, even though it's very clearly not there. And off 161 balls, Dom Sibley has a Test match 50, his 7th 50-plus score in Test cricket.
Lord.
50 runs, your 50 runs. Well done, well done, well done, well done. 50 runs, your 50 runs. The job is only just begun.
We'll settle a few nerves after a poor run since the first innings of the first Chennai Test, where he scored that excellent 87 in partnership with Joe Root. Time in the middle, it's all well and good. Similarly for Ollie Pope, who could probably do with spending a little bit of time in the middle. There's not kind of on a hiding to nothing here if you're Ollie Pope, aren't you? There's very little to be gained here if you're Pope or Dan Lawrence or somebody. As Southey is in to his Olliness the Pope, who flicks this very pleasantly into the onside, well fielded at I thought it was well fielded at square leg. It looked nice, and then the camera operator didn't pick up the ball. What they did pick up was Mitchell Santner realising that he hadn't actually fielded the ball, and it had gone straight through him for 4.
1 2 ka 4 4 2 ka 1. My name is Lakhan. My name is Lakhan.
Actually, that's a little harsh. It did go past him. It was nicely played by Pope, square of the man, for 4 runs. Played a couple of nice shots in the first innings, one of those through mid-wicket, and a lovely classic Ollie Pope cover drive for 4. He's off the mark with that boundary. Southey in. Ross Taylor, who has decided wherever else you're putting the field, skip, I'm staying at slip, is the single close catcher. There's a shortish mid-wicket who fields this as Pope pushes to that man. There is no run.
I'd widen out your point, Knuckle, for there not being much to be gained here from Ollie Pope. There is not much to be gained here, I would suggest.
Well, it's not him. New Zealand will think, we could try and force a collapse. Neil Wagner's done some ridiculous things in Test cricket.
It's true, that is true.
Southey in, hair sticking up as though he's just stuck his finger in an electrical socket, is outside off stump, and that's pleasantly driven by Pope. Doesn't really go through with the stroke, and so de Grandhomme can field at cover, and there is no run. I mean, Neil Wagner will probably bowl unchanged now, and they'll have to literally drag him off the field. Even his own team.
Did you see him celebrate when he got Root's wicket?
Yeah, he always does that.
I know, but it's just like I sort of worry about him.
I've heard him interviewed. He said he looks back at his own celebrations and he thinks, who's that idiot?
Yeah, but I mean, especially in the context of this game, you sort of think, all right, mate, all right.
Last ball of the over as Southey comes in from the pavilion end past umpire Richard Kettlebrook. Goes wide of the crease trying to tempt Pope into a Crawley-esque loose cover drive, but he does not loose cover drive. Through to the keeper it goes. There is no run. England 141 for 318 overs remaining of this Test match, in theory.
Mike Taylor says public transport costs on the continent are mental. I just found a train fare from Paris to the Spanish border, 550 miles for £7. I live in the Pyrenees and I can travel 100 miles for €1, though often they refuse to take it. Me like.
Well, I think what you can probably say is that train prices in the United Kingdom are ridiculous.
Oh, that's absolutely absurd. Sibley should shave his head so we could refer to it as the Domdome, says Leia. Adam Etienne wonders how many more wickets would England need to lose in the next 4 or 5 overs before New Zealand reject the handshake. Oh, don't, please. Oh, Grand Theft Auto says that Ed Benson is the voice double of Tom Hiddleston.
As Wagner comes in, gets a little bit of swing into the right-handed Dom Sibley, who, for all of the criticism, he's batted pretty well and has looked fairly untroubled for the most part in what could have been a very tricky situation for England, and he has helped take a lot of the drama out of this game, which is a major part of what you need to do in this situation if you're trying to save a game.
He's done his job perfectly. It might not be that exciting, but this is what he's there for.
In comes Wagner. Again, a little bit of swing, but Sibley seems to have a lot of time to play this line of attack now, and he blocks to mid-wicket. There is no run. He's looked more uncomfortable on the outside edge when the ball's been going across him, as tends to happen with most batters. But he's a very patient man. He's got himself into the Test team through years of patient run accumulation in the county championship, as Neil Wagner tries to tunnel back to New Zealand.
He had the pounder out a minute ago.
Yes, they
doing
got
the pounding.
Yes, bring the wacky thing.
Dear oh Lord. Grand Theft Auto said that Ed is like cricket commentary brought to you by Marvel's Loki.
Oh, that's very kind. I wish I was as handsome and talented as Mr. Hiddleston. That would be lovely.
As in comes Wagner bowling into that hole of a footmark that he's just generated, and gets this one to lift from back of a length, and Sibley rips his bottom hand away from the bat and is a little discomforted by it, then goes down and prods an area of the pitch nowhere near where the ball landed. There is no run.
Nestles, do you remember the time that Ditch was telling us he was commentating on a similar game, and he just started, I think this is right, he'll probably correct me, but he said that it got so boring that what they did was he just started saying 1 or 0, 1 meaning left and 0 meaning defended after every ball.
Wagner in and Sibley defends the backward point.
One.
There is no run to Gully.
Yeah.
What he said was he started using the words ping for a leave and pong for a single clip to mid-on.
Yeah. Well, I have to say there have been moments in Dom Sibley's innings where I'm not sure we've added anything by not just saying ping and pong.
Conway and Tom are talking about their golf swings there.
Yeah, but like you say, Nestles, it's like sport is entertainment, of course, but it's not the only thing about sport. There's excellence, there's skill, and there's, that's what we're seeing from Sibley. No complaints here, and no complaints from me. From I like those people on Twitter saying they should have gone for it. New Zealand are a better side than England, probably.
Wagner, full delivery. Sibley tries to, thinks about playing an on drive, but then just turns the face of the bat defensively. There is no run.
Well, I'll turn it back to all the last few years of everybody moaning about the England opening pair.
Yep.
And we haven't got anyone who can stay there and blah, blah, blah. Well, we have, it seems.
Yeah, we had Rory Burns very nearly carrying his bat, and Dom Sibley's batted for 166 balls and has only looked in trouble off maybe about 8 of them. As Wagner is in last ball of the over, and Sibley defends solidly outside off stump. There is no run. Wagner keeps hurling himself towards the bowling crease, but let's see whether in vain or no. 17 overs remaining in theory. New Zealand needs 7 wickets.
Jay Grover says, I've said it before, the day before yesterday, I'm not spilling more Wagner's pint. He also says, is Pope established enough for a classic Ollie Pope cover drive being coined? I don't know yet. Give it time. Mayank tells us that train tickets are still half what we pay in America. Here we only have one company, Amtrak, so it's bloody expensive. Regularly costs over $100 from Philadelphia to New York City, which is about 105 miles away. Well, Mayank, try that same journey in the UK. I think it will probably be more than what you pay.
Yep.
Yeah, there was a famous case a couple of years ago, somebody who was commuting into London from outside of London moved to Barcelona.
Yes,
because it was
flew in every day.
It was cheaper to fly from Barcelona every day than get the train from wherever he was living.
Yeah. We're having some more shilly-shallying, which is great.
In comes Southey to his Olliness, Oliver John Douglas Pope, who whips this into the onside, and they come through for a single.
Nestlers is wise, says Jay Grover. Read on Sibley. Release the tamper. The plunger, I think he's talking about. Warren's got the PGA on in the background and thought I'd left the pressure cooker on, only to realise it's the cicadas. They come up, then they spend 17 years underground and come up for like a few days and then die.
It's some insane life cycle like that, yes.
Yes,
as umpire Michael Goff performs the ring test on the Duke and hands it back to Kane Williamson. I'm not really sure what he thought a change of ball would achieve at this point, unless he's going to hand him Southey a live hand grenade.
Oh dear.
Even Joe Root looks a bit bored.
Joe Root looks very much like a child on a long car trip who's just realised they've gone past the last services and he's not getting a McDonald's. Short ball from Southey and Sibley ducks under it through to the keeper. There is no run.
We're there yet? Dad, we there yet? Jake says this is terrible. I was about to suggest Ed looks like he has herpes, but I'm going to be outvoted by people who thinks he looks like Tom Hiddleston. Damn you, democracy.
Said it before and I've said it again. Democracy doesn't work, to quote Ken Brockman from The Simpsons.
And not Fred Titmus, probably.
Well, depending on...
Southey in wideish slip. This one comes in a little bit to Sibley, who blocks it a bit on. There is no run.
Well, a bit like the sort of horseshoe period theory of politics. I'm not sure whether his solution into everything is radical democracy or radical sort of totalitarian rule by Fred. You know, people in those positions tend to sort of converge, don't they?
I think he's a libertarian by nature, isn't he? I don't know.
Who is Fred Titmus? We'll never know.
Well, he's not Fred Titmus.
Yes, even Fred Titmus isn't Fred Titmus. That's kind of the point. Shadows lengthen as Southey comes in. A short ball, which Sibley ducks under comfortably enough through to the keeper. There is no run. We're talking a little bit about changes for the next Test match. I think it's fairly well established now that Ollie Robinson isn't going to play as...
is it?
Basically, I think a lot of people have been saying this, basically for making the ECB look stupid. I would expect then.
Shouldn't they let him play the next Test match, and then there's a little break without Test cricket, and have a sit down with him after that?
Want to. I think they'll probably do both, but I think they want to, be seen to be doing something. As Southey is in from mid-crease, floaty delivery outside off stump with Sibley leaves through to the keeper. There is no run. It looks a bit half-arsed if you leave him out for a game 2 months away or whatever.
Yeah, I know it's not the point, but because of the news cycle and everything else these days, it's gone away a little bit in the media.
Yes.
And with all the other distractions you've got, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, people are kind of like, I don't know. I know that's not the point, but I wonder if I don't know if it matters too much the next Test match, really.
I wonder if that's part of the reason they're doing it. This isn't in the World Test Championship.
Southey in angling into Sibley, who clips to the leg side, very comfortable there. Of course, takes the single out to Mitchell. Santner moves to 51. England 143 for 3. An entirely notional 130 runs to win. A potentially also notional 16 overs remaining.
4 more overs. 4 more. I do think it is. Oh, sorry,
No,
please. You do it.
No,
the tweets will be more interesting in my comments on this game.
Anna Forsyth says, train travel here is in the thousands. Where are you? And takes longer than driving the distance, but it's a more tourist activity than actual public transport. Leia says, public transport in the UK is stupidly expensive. You can take all the buses, trains and ferries. Yes, their public transportation network includes a few boats in Hamburg for a week for 20 epping euros. When they hand it all over to private enterprise, saying that it'll drive the fares down because there's more competition, it doesn't seem to have worked, does it?
Let the market decide.
No, and now they're semi-renationalising it, aren't they?
Isn't that what Corbyn suggested? Just saying.
Broadband communism. One of the stupidest political phrases I've ever heard.
What's that?
Broadband communism. What the hell does that mean?
I don't know. I quite liked his manifesto. There was just a lot of it.
One of his big apparatchiks wrote a book called Fully Automated Luxury Communism, didn't he? So perhaps that'd be better than broadband.
Wagner in... that's this one to hold its line outside off stump. Sibley was troubled by a few of those early in his innings, but he's very well in now and blocks up to Williamson, and there is no run.
Jay is asking, didn't Max Benson, late of this parish, realise it was a cheaper night out to go to a York City home game by train or plane, get pissed, go back of an evening? It's cheaper than a night out in London. Probably was.
Sure, that's true. I never met the other Benson. I gather he's in South Africa.
Yeah.
Short leg in place, so Wagner's trying something. Sibley works this into the onside, Devon Conway, who will almost certainly be player of the match on Test debut, and deservedly so. It was a magnificent innings, Fields, and they come through for a single. For New Zealand, to be honest, it depends on Santner's fitness, I suppose, as to whether they play another spinner in Ajaz Patel or another seamer. I don't think they'll be making too many changes. Trent Bolt's not
admirable effort.
Trent Bolt's
Trent
Bolt's almost certainly not going to be available for the next Test match, say for the World Test Championship final. No, he's only arrived in England this week because they gave him some time off after the IPL.
Right.
So he'll be available for the World Test Championship final.
Oh, right. So he's just going to be practicing in the nets before that.
Yeah, a little bit, and acclimatising. Probably quarantining, I think, a little bit as well. As Wagner in, a little bit of movement. Yeah, again, he's got the ball to go across Pope and the right-handers a few times. This one dies short of Southey at second slip. There is no run. Neil Wagner did start as a swing bowler before he turned into a human trebuchet. And you can see that there is no little skill, not as... it is obviously very skilled to be able to bowl that many short balls that accurately, and incredible physical fitness. I heard his fitness regime, he runs a 100-metre sprint, then a 200, then a 300, then a 400. Back to back without a break is one of his fitness regimes. Oh, that's a good delivery as well. On a length, and Pope has a fiddle at it, and it goes through to the keeper. There is no run. Neil Wagner will have to be dragged kicking and screaming off this cricket field.
He is nuts.
He often is kicking and screaming anyway. I mean, we saw that when the last wicket fell.
Yeah, he can't help himself. It's just completely automatic. He's apparently quite a sort of softly spoken, mild-mannered guy in the rest of his life.
Just walks over that white line and turns.
Two slips in the gully, backward point, mid-off, short leg, mid-on, square leg, just in front of square, long leg. Wagner in full, driven by Pope. Not the full classical, brilliant cover drive of Ian Bell-esque proportions from Ollie Pope. Just a little push into the offside, takes a single, moves to 6. After this, James Bracey's padded up, so let's see what happens. Haven't seen Dan Lawrence as yet. I suppose, small thing, James Bracey getting some runs in Test cricket if another wicket falls. There are 15 overs left after this, all eyes on hands. Can indeed you shake hands in COVID times? Is it a fist bump? As Wagner into Sibley, who turns this past short leg and takes the single out to deep square leg. It will just be 1. He moves to 53, England 146 for 3. 15 overs are now remaining. Is this going to be it? I don't know.
They're focusing on Kane. Doesn't look like it. No. Sibley's taking his hat off.
He's putting his gloves back on, though, it looked to me.
Williamson is shaking his hand, is he?
It looks like Williamson is taking a bowling marker.
Is he?
Or checking something. It doesn't look like there's any move to shake hands, does there?
And then there's Cristiano Ronaldo.
And then there's an advert, so we can't tell you.
He's getting involved. What do you think, Cristiano?
To quote the great Malcolm Tucker, watching this is like watching The Shawshank Redemption, except with more shoveling through shit and no redemption.
Do you want some tweets while we're here?
Yes.
Isn't broadband communism so much quicker than dial-up? Says Jeff Birkin. Let us not talk of politics, because I might cry and go briefly mental, says Jay. Yeah, that's kind of a lot of people's attitude in England these days. Pirate Badshaw, the bus route I used to get to Malahide is now run by the company that runs the buses in London. Coincidentally, it is now horrifically unreliable. Leia says, broadband communism, utopia with excellent internet for everyone. I'm in for that. Ed's claim to have never met Max is merely a charade to throw us off the real truth. There is always a Benson on alternative commentary duty. They merely regenerate like in Doctor Who.
We're having a drinks break. It looks to me.
Yeah,
for God's sake.
The two teams can now agree to a draw at any point if they wish to. And apparently we're having, what is happening is having drinks.
Well, I want to order my curry, for God's sake, Joe. Jeez. Bloody hell. Jay says, I'm not messing. I'm not spilling Wagner's pint. I doubt he drinks than mine, but I'm not noticing his protein shake either. Anna Forsyth said, I thought Trebuchet was a font on Microsoft Word.
It is.
Pirate Pirate Bradshaw says the go-ahead or no-go group, to be specific. Yeah, that's the bus company. Yeah, public transport. I don't know. As Messi just points out, I did used to have a bus driver here who I used to get on. First time I met him, he got on the bus and it's 2.20. He was 2.20. He said, that's too much, isn't it? Just give us a quid. So I went for like about 6 months just giving this guy £1, which he put in his pocket. He probably made quite a bit of money because he probably did that to quite a few people. But he got caught. But they still employed him because he told me that he'd got caught and been told off.
Well,
so I had to pay the full fare.
So much to unpick there. So much.
Outrageous that you had to pay the full fare. It looks as though we're going to continue. New Zealand haven't completely given up hope of taking 7 wickets in 15 overs.
I have to go at the end at 6:30. Knuckle, I actually have to, I'm afraid.
Everyone's making their excuses, including the ground staff who are running away.
Yeah, I'll admit I don't particularly want to keep watching it, but I have to go.
We'll drag Messi Jez back from.
I always hated when commentators complained about not enjoying. Alan Green was a big one for that on the football. This is terrible, blah blah blah. I actually liked Alan Green, but I think it's slightly different when you're in as I am in my bedroom in a darkened room, watching it on the screen.
Not
saying,
getting paid.
Yeah,
Southey in a bouncer, which Sibley ducked under, and they decide not to do any running. There is, as a result, no run. Funnily enough.
I suppose, Knuckle, they probably think New Zealand, look, we want to get match fitness into our bowlers, so why not keep going? That must be the reason.
Yeah, and I understand that. It's been a little while since Wagner or Southey will have played a great deal of cricket. Neither of them played the IPLs, their first test match since January.
Would anyone bring into the equation injuries? I wonder.
Expand on that point after this ball, which Sibley forces off the back foot with something approaching style. And
that's the best shot he's played today.
It's fielded by Colin de Mullet at short extra cover, and there is no run.
I know you possibly can't think like that, but imagine if, say, Southey or Wagner pulled up now. That would be after you had the opportunity to go. Okay, it's going to be a draw, let's get in the bar.
I do wonder actually if you run more risk of injury by going half-hearted.
No, but I mean actually stopping, so that they don't get hurt.
Maybe. Southey is in. Ross Taylor still in there at that wideish slip. This is back of a length on off stump, and Sibley works to Santner a deep square leg, and they come through for a single. In a way, I don't mind this. I don't mind New Zealand, in a way, giving themselves every opportunity to force an element of panic. There is, if they take a few quick wickets and make England sweat it towards the end of play, get some confidence into their bowlers and all of this stuff. The shaking of hands has always slightly annoyed me.
Wouldn't annoy me today.
2 slips in the gully, backward point, cover. Mid off, mid on, a little bit wider. 2 men back on the hook at deep square leg and long leg as Ollie Pope faces up to Tim Southey with his back of a length, and Pope wants a single, Sibley doesn't. Kyle Jamieson runs in, forgets to pick up the ball, and they probably could have run a single in all of that, but the end result is that there is no run.
Dara Azizi says we need the batting practice, and what about the fans? They deserve to see some more cricket. Yeah, I think a lot of people in the stadium are probably thinking, can I go to the bar yet?
I don't know if you would go home having waited so long, but I suspect that a lot of people are talking about something other than the cricket, as indeed we have been at parts.
They are sitting in the sun as well.
Southey in, let alone outside off stump and through to the keeper. There is no run. That's what I mean. Like it's a nice. Lords is a nice place to spend time, even if there isn't anything particularly exciting happening.
Yeah.
No, and I would say I was there yesterday, and I don't think the cricket was particularly exciting. Wasn't very much that was totally memorable, but it was extremely enjoyable just being there.
There was a period yesterday, that burst from Southey in the morning, and
the
Jamieson's
first full wicket.
The Anderson-Burns partnership was quite fun, and then England bowled really well in the latter part of the day. But there were periods in the middle where it was slow going for sure. Not boring per se, but slow. As Southey is in last ball of the over. That's a good delivery, which threatens to come in, and a well-judged lead by Ollie Pope, who watches it go past the off stump, and they go through to the keeper, and there is no run. 14 overs to go, or we go to 7:20, whichever is the later. Williamson is wandering around. He's wandering towards batters.
He's just going to the other side of the pitch.
No, it was just a little hand.
He's just winding me up, so I can't get my dinner. Jay Grover says, "Meant to hear from you again, Ed. Glad you're well. I'm sorry that one day you'll have to die by my hand, but you made the choice."
You know, Jay, sometimes you just got to make decisions in life and come to terms with their consequences, and your death is one of those.
He'll be walking down the Chancery Lane, looking over his shoulder from now on.
That's not how
as he goes into Middle Court or whatever it's called.
That's not how duels work. They're very obviously set up, and I think everyone knows they're in one. It's not. I think he's saying a duel, not an assassination attempt.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't know that bit.
This is on leg stump from Wagner and flicked nicely into the onside by Sibley. Evades the short leg, and Jameson has to hurl himself at it out there at long leg, and they come through 4-2. Sibley moves to 56.
Well, it's been a pleasure hearing from Jay, as always.
Oh, yeah.
It's been lovely to be back on. Shame the game's fizzled out a little bit. But
James Bracey and Zach Crawley appear to be falling asleep on the England balcony.
They're probably going as well. They're probably sitting there going, "When can we order the curry?"
Back of a length outside off stump, Sibley forces into the offside, and there is no run. If you're Dan Lawrence or James Bracey, you've got a naught in the first innings, particularly Bracey are on Test debut. Do you want to have a bat and get some runs, or do you think another failure? Maybe Lawrence probably more so than Bracey, but do you think there's nothing to be gained here from batting?
Nothing to be gained, I would think.
Yeah, probably. I'd rather just sit there and wait.
2 slips in the gully and a short leg. In comes Wagner. We've not really seen anything short. I mean, this has not been a quick pitch by any means. Oh, there's a short ball, and it's very, very easy for Dom Sibley to duck under through to the keeper, and there is no run. Normally, a Wagner bouncer doesn't rocket up that high. Normally, it's skidding into your ribs, and you can't do anything about it, and it's horrible.
Hombre Nuevo says, "No matter what's going on in the field, you've kept it massively entertaining, and I'm about to start taking bets on what time the curry will be ordered."
Now that's a GPL I might enter.
GPL's in play. New Zealand scored 107 runs today, so you can add that onto whatever England score. Bring you the calculations after this ball. As in comes Wagner from the nursery end, left arm over the wicket, past umpire Goff. A full swinging delivery. Sibley, not quite sure what that started life as. It was attempted. It started as a cover drive. It sort of went through a phase of being an on drive, and then ended its sad and miserable life as a prod into the onside, and there is no run.
Do you think Dom Sibley is a bit of a nerd off the pitch?
I don't know. To be honest, he looks kind of like he wouldn't look out of place in an all bar one.
Okay.
There's a lads, pants, Magaluf vibe to him. Pointless short delivery from Wagner, which is way outside the line of off stump, and there is no run. It just kind of looks like a guy who's on a permanent gap year. Not in the way he plays, just facially.
The shaking of hands vexes me, but then so does extraneous punctuation and troll dolls. So I am a petty man. Guess who sent that one in?
Yep.
Jay.
Of course.
A New Zealand fan is in danger of losing his foot trapped in between the seat and the seat of the back of the seat. Better bouncer from Wagner. Simply has to duck lower to evade it, and there is no run. Wagner's gone Wagner ball. England 149 for 13 overs left for New Zealand to force. I keep saying miracle. It really would be at this point.
Lovely to see you all, but I must go. I'm going to be replaced by Messi Jez for the dramatic and undoubtedly thrilling conclusion that will happen in the next 10 overs.
See you, Ed.
See you, Ed. See you next test.
Jay says, "Knackle, I'm just scared Ed will fall in a canal now."
What, before you have a chance to enact your... Was it to wreak my Rwengi? To quote Hugh Laurie. Southey is in. 2 slips in place. 2 slips now in place. That ball both swings out from Pope and then into Watling. Keeping it Lords isn't easy. He did well down the leg side, and there is no run.
This can't go on till 7:30, can it?
7:20.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Or 13, or now 12.5 overs, whichever is the later. So currently we've had 256 runs scored in the day's play. The remaining GPL entries are Mark Selleck on 257.261, Alan Reynolds 262, Lancashire Bloke 263, Scramble Channel 264 and 265. He and Mark Selleck both on 266. 267, 268, 271, 27. There's quite a lot of GPL entries in play, basically. Pope fiddles handily at this, and it just goes to backward point. Conway up there at backward point, and there is no run.
Sorry, where did you say we're at the moment?
We're on 256.
Oh, well, that makes it quite interesting.
Yeah, I think a GPL winner, because there's a lot of entries between 257 and 287, then a bit of a jump to 312. I think a GPL winner is very likely. You'll win yourself a good 70 odd quid.
Well, I hope you're listening now, all of you GPLers.
Mark Selleck, Alan Reynolds, Lancashire Bloke, Scramble Channel, and Hombre Nuevo. As Tim Southey fails to bull this delivery, I think he got lost his run up in the footmark coming in from the pavilion end. There is no run. Fetch the wacky thing again. No, apparently not.
Right, do you want some excitement?
Sure. Yeah, are you going to red flag it?
I've been reckless. I've ordered the curry, so if it comes, damn you all to hell.
How long do they normally take, Nestlers? This is going to be the benchmark.
45 minutes, roughly.
Oh, I think you're going to be safe, mate.
Southey turns at the end of his run and is in past the umpire. Full outswinger, lovely drive by Ollie Pope, straight to Colin de Grandhomme, hiding the mullet under the top hat. That would be fun. Sun hat, and there is no run.
What time is it in Perth, Messi?
It is currently 27 minutes to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Jesus Christ, you're putting a shift in, mate. I mean, God, well done, sir. Couldn't we find someone from this part of the world to let him off?
No, that's all right. I normally don't go to bed before 2 anyhow.
Really?
Nah. Well, you know, when you're retired and live by yourself, there's nobody but the dogs who give a shit.
In comes Southey down the leg side. Pope has a flick at it. Nicely taken by Watling down the leg side. Pope doesn't make contact, and there is no run. Slight air of nervousness about Ollie Pope. Another failure here. Doesn't look good after the winter. He's done well for Surrey this year. He's got a big double 100 and another 100 as well, but was done on the inside edge by Tim Southey in the first innings.
He's on a hiding to nothing here at the moment, isn't he, really?
A little bit. Some sun cream plastered across the nose and upper cheek region, and a little bit on the lips as well. In comes Southey. This one does come into Pope. Similar delivery to the one that got him out in the first innings. Carl Jameson completely fails to pick up the ball at mid-wicket, and they come through for a single. Ian Pope? Ollie Pope does resemble, not just in terms of his cover drive, but facially Ian Bell. When he's
in that helmet, yeah.
When he's wearing the helmet. Yeah. Less so when you can see the shock of ginger hair, but
when a lot of people who put the helmets on look like other people when they got the helmet on. I swear, Josh Butler looks exactly like Jenson Button when he's helmeted.
I must say, there's a disproportionately high number of gingers who play for it, in my view.
No, I can't really think of another. Well, no, Bairstow and Stokes.
Bairstow and Stokes, yeah.
Yeah.
My Hank reckons my curry is more important than the cricket.
Last ball
I know you think that.
Last ball of Southey's 17th over. I think there's a leg gully in place for Dom Sibley, which is not a bad option. Also a catching mid-wicket. He flicks it to that catching mid-wicket all along the ground. Tom Latham it is there doing the fielding. England 150 for 3. Dominic Sibley on 56. Oliver Pope on 7. 12 overs remaining.
Greg Rover says he made himself a promise not to watch the second series of People Blinders, I assume you mean Peaky Blinders, until the first test was over. I'm a man of my word, but with the best of this will is doing my in-head in. Anna Forsyth says Bracey's second innings is currently Schrodinger's knock. I imagine he's operating under the same idea of better to keep your mouth shut and let people think you're an idiot than open your mouth and prove it.
Well, I can balcony watch. Zach Crawley, who looks quite ginger in this light, even though he isn't, is yawning. James Bracey, who is not padded up but is in white, was biting his nails, and he's having a chat with Joe Root, both of whom look about 4 years younger than they actually are. Dan Lawrence.
He's definitely got some colour in his hair if he's not a ginger naturally.
Dan Lawrence is presumably padded up somewhere out of sight of the cameras. Wagner in bowling over N+1 as this is blocked by Pope plus the bowler, and there is no run. I think he's been bowling for about an hour, Neil Wagner, which for him is just a gentle stroll. Bowled 11 overs on the trot against Pakistan with 2 broken toes to win them that test match.
Jeez. He's like a sort of ship you can't stop once it starts, isn't he?
I think there was something in that, is that some bowlers, if they're slightly injured, it's better for them to keep going, because if you stop them, they can't start again. Man goes back on the hook, and Wagner goes wide of off stump, trying to tempt Pope into a drive, which he manages to do, but Pope times it nicely enough past the right hand of backward point, 4 runs. A little bit aerial, but in the gap, so no harm, no foul, 4 runs. Yeah, on Neil Wagner, since his debut, he's bowled nearly double the number of 10 over plus spells as any other seamer, and 35% of his spells are 7 overs or longer.
Wow, that's something, isn't it?
Which is far higher than anyone else of similar pace. Short ball pulled nicely by Pope, gets up and manages to control the bounce. Sort of a top spin, 2-handed backhand from Ollie Pope out to deep square leg, and they come through for a single. A real whip of the wrists.
Jeff Perkins says maybe we can phone in an anonymous tip about a new variant having been identified in a sample from Jack Leach, and they will call this match off. Messages says Messages is wise.
Thank you, Jay. That's not what you were saying earlier, but I'm pleased you've changed your tone. We haven't talked much about any changes in the New Zealand side.
In comes Wagner, full delivery on the pads. A little bit of swing again. Sibley works down to long leg, and they come through for 2 runs. Nicely run indeed. BJ Watling whips the bails off for no reason whatsoever. Sibley to 58. To be honest, I think unless Mitchell Santner is unfit with that cut on his spinning finger, I'm not sure there'll be any.
Because they've only got 3 days break. I'm just wondering how long is the break between Edgbaston and the WTC final?
World Test Championship final, I think, starts on the 18th of June. Is that right?
Wow.
It's not long.
So, well, the test match in Edgbaston finishes on the 14th. So there'll be another 3-day break, which is pretty tight.
In comes Neil Wagner. Short ball, well played by Sibley. Stands up tall and closes the face and guides it out pretty much with a vertical bat to the man at square leg, and they come through for a single. The Edgbaston Test finishes on the Monday, and the World Test Championship final starts on the Friday. They will have Trent Bolt available, of course, for the World Test Championship final, so that'll be something interesting to see who he comes in for. Possibly Santner, when they'll go with all 4 seamers. Although Southampton is a spin-friendly pitch.
Yeah. So, in terms of the pitch at Edgbaston, what do you think we can expect there?
To be honest, I'm not sure. As Wagner is in last ball of the over, blocked by Pope into the offside. They think about a single, then decide against it. There is no run. England 158 for 3, 11 overs remaining, in theory.
The old fart was smart. Says, we give a shit. Thanks for staying up. There you go, miss. That's for you, I think.
Thank you, old fart.
Have New Zealand got a fat man they can hand the ball to for a final over? Hang on, what's going on here? Megan scissor kicked someone. This is from Warren. Another penalty. Harry sent it into the corner, hit a steward who was on the green. Oh, he's mixing up his the coverage of the football, the golf, and the royal baby.
I imagine Prince Harry's played quite a lot of golf over the years.
No, it's his brother, the nonce, who's the golfer.
Oh, is it? Okay. We change of bowling. Tim Southey's out of the attack, and for one last burst, it's El Fenomeno.
And that's the story of how Kyle Jamieson became a man.
Kyle Jamieson, very impressive figures on paper of number 20 off his 12 overs, but has been largely unthreatening today, bar a little bit in his most recent spell. He's in from the pavilion end. It's a poor delivery, a really loopy short ball outside off stump, which Sibley ducks for reasons known only to himself. There is no run. 75 miles an hour from Jameson as well, so he's slightly losing rhythm and pace.
I'm normally a stunning brunette, says Jay, but after a few hours in a beer garden, the ginger claims my head. The shame is unbearable.
Does the temper come with it, Jay? That's the thing.
In comes Jameson to Sibley on 50. Again, very wide of off stump, and Sibley leaves through to the keeper. There is no run. 82 miles an hour, a little bit better from Jameson. Can understand why he's not completely charging in at this point, but it's a slightly laboured approach to the crease. It's a lot of human to move, I suppose.
Come on, Kane, give Rooty the nod on the balcony.
It's a funny stage, this, isn't it? We're just sort of waiting for it to form.
It's like waiting for something to die, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
Jameson in, 2 slips in place. Short ball, which Sibley sees very early and ducks, and it bobbles and dies through to BJ Watling, and there is no run.
Yeah, I think the only thing dying so far is the pitch. It's not what I would regard as a great cricket pitch.
No, it's, again, as I was saying earlier, there's been a little bit of seam movement at times when you've landed it on the seam. There's been a bit of spin, occasional bits of variable bounce, but it's been largely fairly slow. And it's been not even that easy to score quickly on. It's not been dead, but it's not been great either. Short ball from Jameson, which does get up, but again, it's such a slow pitch that even someone like Kyle Jameson is having to dig it in very short, and Sibley has been able to duck under these very quickly. As we see, the man who was struggling to put on his poncho earlier, he is now wearing a trilby with straw hat coloured with egg and bacon hat band, and also a cable knit sweater with egg and bacon trim, which he's managed to put on the correct way round. In comes Kyle Jameson, tall, blonde, sensible side parting, outside off stump and left through to the keeper. There is no run. BJ Watling, not quite short, not quite long hair, looks fairly compact in general.
The other thing that occurred to me is that, is 2 o'clock in the morning here is nothing compared to what you guys are going to go through for the Ashes. So I figure it's not much of a sacrifice by comparison.
That's quite a big no ball that Kyle Jameson has just bowled as well.
Yeah.
Over the line! Huh? I'm sorry, Smokey. You were over the line. That's a foul.
In he comes to rock and roll and reload that one again. Short ball outside off stump through to the compact Watling. There is all no balls in Test, One Day International and T20 International cricket automatically called by the third umpire now, which is good. As the floodlights come on at Lord's.
Oh, exciting! Come on, Hobbit.
Come on, Hobbit.
Well, he looks like a dwarf in The Hobbit.
Oh, I think that's a bit rough.
He does. The main dwarf.
I've never noticed before, on one of the stands, there are anti-climb spikes on the top of it at Lord's. Why on earth? This is down the leg side. Half expecting these to be called wides, to be honest. As this is left alone through to the keeper, there is no run. A fairly filthy over from Kyle Jameson. Only the one run off it, including the which was the no ball, as a lot of substitute fielders come on carrying pads. 10 overs remaining for New Zealand to take an unlikely looking 7 wickets.
You talk about the anti-climbing stuff. I was about to say, Knuckle, that it is in the UK and the place does serve beer, so who have we got talking to us? Anyone saying anything exciting? Maybe this is the punishment for England's slow over rate, suggests Jeff Perkins. It's only ever Auburn, so proper balance, says Jay Grover. I think he's talking about his hair or he's going nuts. Megan has gotten one, but they are pushing for another. Maybe extra time, says Warren. He's getting everything confused. That's about it at the moment. Anywhere else? No. Nothing on TikTok. No one's doing a dance.
Yorkshire forced a win by an innings and 30 runs that sounded fun earlier.
Not for Sussex.
No. Nigeria women got bowled out for 52 by Namibia earlier in the day.
And I can tell you the relatively good news is that the weather forecast at this stage for Edgbaston on Thursday is cloudy and dry.
As we have a change of bowling, double change, Neil Wagner is removed from the attack for his own good, and a man with a cut spinning finger is back into the attack. Go figure. Mitchell Santner with a big full toss to start with, which Pope doesn't time. His next ball is better and does turn sharply, and BJ Watling has to take at his fullest extent. Bounce as well. Good delivery from this man.
Santner baby, get some drift into the pads for me. Been an awful good Kiwi. Santner baby, and dart them in quickly tonight.
He floats that one in at a fairly acceptable test match pace, and it does curve a little bit, and a little bit of bounce left by Pope through to the keeper. There is no run. Santner's bowled a few. There was that latter period of his other spell, which was pretty filthy, but there's been some nice deliveries throughout this test match. This is again a little bit of drift. Pope going very inside out in his drive, gets it square of the wicket and gets a single to point. I think. Surely they came through for a single there. Yes, they did. Moves to 13, Sibley onto 59. A little bit of loop and drift and dip from Santner. Could be useful on the Southampton pitch, which is dry and does turn a bit. From Mitchell Santner, very economical as well and combat.
I'm really looking forward to that match.
In comes Santner, tosses this up well outside off stump, simply leaves through to the keeper. There is no run, 9 overs left after this, or 40 minutes, whichever is the longer.
Yes, and you wonder really how much longer they're going to bother.
Santner tosses this up, and such is the way of Dominic Sibley that he doesn't smash this away to the Regent's Park boating lake, but instead pushes it out into the covers, and there is no run. England won 60 for 3, 9 overs left, or 40 minutes. So Mitchell Santner really is 30 minutes, apologies.
I was just looking at the scorecard and thinking, if this was an IPL game, we'd be thinking 113 runs in 9 overs, they might just make that.
Well, indeed. Tim Southey, I think, was off the field briefly, which might have been why Jameson has come on. Jameson is going to continue. The scoreboard says 6 overs remaining in the final hour. Not quite sure what that's about. Jameson tosses the ball from hand to hand as though he was about to bowl leg spin, but he's in bowling his regular stuff. Down the leg side, a half appeal as Pope tries to flick to leg. Probably leg buys down to Matt Henry, who's on for someone. Yes, leg buys signalled by umpire Kettleborough. It'll be Kettleborough and Illingworth, the interchangeable Richards, who are umpiring at Edgbaston next week, with Gough in the third umpire's chair. Michael Gough, who is a very good umpire, has not had a particularly good test match.
No, he's had a couple of shockers, hasn't he?
Unusual for him.
Yeah. It occurs to me that Sky or their commercial partners are missing out on an opportunity. We haven't seen the
short, good ball, well played or left indeed by Sibley through to the keeper. There is no run.
We haven't seen the use of the DRS system in the same way that the IPL manages to exploit it so successfully for commercials every time there's an appeal.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got reviews, but then yes, they check runouts and things that are probably closer than they might be otherwise. But you know, frankly, there are more opportunities to do it. You can't manufacture them as much in Test cricket. There's not many people taking quick singles.
Yeah, but I don't think they even...
Short ball into the hips, and Sibley works this down to long leg for 1.
I can't even remember who's actually on the screen at the time of the DRS reviews, whereas I could tell you word perfectly what the ones in the IPL are. Not that PayTM need any further advertising.
Well, sure, but you need something to go off, right? To some extent. and it's not just completely manufactured from whole cloth. As Michael Holding, I'm sure he's being very interesting about Kyle Jamieson's bowling action. I'll have to dig that out later. Ooh, good in-swinger. The best ball that Kyle Jamieson's bowled for a while. And this being cricket, Ollie Pope edges it past the slips for 4.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, good hoofing in-swinger from outside off stump, kept a little bit low. Ollie Pope prodded at it, hopefully, and it squirted past second slip all along the ground for 4. No wonder Kyle Jamieson looked annoyed.
Yeah, that's a line and length he could have done with for a lot more of his balls.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed, he has been very dangerous when he's bowled that full length. He has bowled well, certainly bowled very well in the first innings.
Yes.
It's been a little bit too wide of off stump for the most part in this innings. That's nicely cut by Pope, as this is a little bit shorter and wider. Fielded on the bounce at gully, and there is no run.
Sorry about that. It's my neighbour who's they pushed my second jab forward to Tuesday morning.
Oh, good.
And he's taking me, so I was just organising that with him. So
that is more important.
Yeah, not more important than my curry at the moment.
I had my first jab on Friday, and I'm glad to say I've had no side effects whatsoever, really.
You lucky boy.
Last ball of the over from Kyle Jamieson. He's in wider of the crease. Ooh, this one jags back in sharply and might have hit Ollie Pope somewhere uncomfortable. No, judging by the fact he's moving fairly cleanly, rather, I think that did hit him sort of inside thigh rather than the ahems. There is no run. Good delivery to end from Jamieson. A couple of decent deliveries in that over. Well fielded by Henry Nichols, actually, as well. Rolling and diving and hitting the stumps. All fun and games. Yeah. There is no run off the final ball of the 67th over of this innings. 6 runs off it, including a leg by 8 overs to go, we think, for New Zealand to force something absolutely ridiculous.
There you go, Mitchell Edwards. 8 overs to go. Tony Bishop would like this from Jeff Perkins. Maybe the anti-climbing paraphernalia is there to deal with matches that end up anti-climatic. Kane forcing Santner to bowl while he bleeds from his finger shows Kiwis aren't as nice as they seem, says Anna Forsyth. England won 1-0 in the football, by the way.
Mitchell Santner, tongue sticking out as is obligatory for all left arm spinners outside off stump, left alone through to the keeper. There is no run.
Against whom?
Romania, wasn't it, they were playing?
Yeah, it's a friendly before the Euros, isn't it?
Yeah. Ooh, Mitchell Santner does have quite a lot of blood on his left trouser leg, I think, where he's been trying to dab his bleeding and cut spinning finger. Of course, you're not allowed to wear a plaster on your bowling hand. So we've got a slip, a short leg, and a short extra cover as Santner tosses this up, gets it to turn. It's not bad for someone who's got a cut on their spinning finger through to the keeper and who takes it above waist height. In fact, above shoulder height, there is no run. Dom Sibley brings up his double Domchery, his double Denchery, his double Cowan Ton. He has faced 200 balls for those 60 runs.
60 runs. 60 runs. Well done.
Santner in. Oh, good delivery, which drifts onto leg stump and dips and turns. Sibley plays it well, though, and defends in front of him. There is no run.
Jay Grover's blaming communism for his arm aches for 12 hours after his jab.
I've had a bit of an arm ache, and every time someone accidentally brushes it or something, it's painful. But felt slightly fatigued on Friday evening, but nothing. Haven't been knocked out by it like a few people have. Sibley forward and smothers this, and there is no run.
You've got a microchip in your arm now from Bill Gates.
Maybe it'll finally give me a sense of direction.
You're Bluetooth enabled. That is the most ludicrous one I'd heard, that the jab makes you Bluetooth.
Santner's now coming over the wicket, trying to get the ball to spin out of the rough. Q Sibley padding away the next 4 overs. Slipping a leg, slipping a short leg in place. A square leg, a mid-on's gone a little bit further back and a little bit wider. There's a deep square leg as well, and I think a backward point and a cover as Santner is in. Tosses it up outside off stump. Sibley is so set up for the leg side that he has to just throw his hands at this, and it's fielded at cover. There is no run.
What's going to bleed out first, the match or the Mitch? Says Jeff Perkins.
So Ross Taylor at first slip, Tim Southey at leg slip, Tom Latham under the lid at short leg. Tossed up outside leg stump. Dominic Sibley pads it away. It was definitely going to hit the stumps, but it pitched outside leg, and therefore cannot be out LBW. Santner appeals, then grins. There is no run. End of the over. England 166 for 3 for as much as that matters. In theory, I think 7 overs remaining, and Sky have found somebody asleep in the crowd.
There's a surprise.
Jay says, Michael, I know this is not true, but your upper window makes you look like you're using a fleshlight in a keffiyeh scarf.
I'm not sure what he's talking about. I'm not entirely sure what he's talking about. Apparently, Michael Holding was giving Rob Key tips on his. As it turns out that so that last delivery, that RSWW appeal, wasn't out, but for not the reason I thought it was. It did pitch in line, but it was turning too much.
Not a bad delivery.
No, it's very difficult to get LBW's bowling to a left-hander, bowling left arm over the wicket. As a left arm spinner, turn the ball away from the bat. Jameson is in very full. Pope tries to drive through the covers or through mid-off. Comes off the inside part of the bat. De Grandhomme dives to his right and flings the ball back in. PJ Watling dives to his right to stop the ball. Ollie Pope scrambles back into his crease. There is no run.
I feel some sympathy for Pope. This is the sort of innings that he's got absolutely nothing to gain and everything to lose.
It can make you really tentative, right? You know, that was probably a delivery that could have been driven through mid-off or extra cover for 4, but the fact he's tentative means that he isn't getting his weight into the stroke, and he's probably missing out on a few average boosting runs. In lumbers Jameson, gets a little bit of movement into the right-hander and a little bit of extra bounce. Pope stands up tall and blocks into the covers. There is no run.
We've just ruined the football for Jay.
Oh, I'm sure he was absolutely... Anyhow, we didn't ruin the football for Jay. Jay's about to go off and watch Peaky Blinders. He's a fibber.
I've never seen that. I don't know what it is.
You must be the only person in England who hasn't.
I haven't seen Breaking Bad either.
Oh dear. Your cultural education needs some development.
In comes Jameson, left alone outside off stump, and there is no run by Ollie Pope. I'm going to start watching Peaky Blinders, I've decided. It's one of those things that my partner doesn't like that kind of show, so I'm going to have to, it's curve out some my own time to do it. It looks like the kind of thing I'd enjoy as Jameson bowls another no ball.
William Francis has sent a picture in.
Oh, grief.
I'm sorry, Smokey.
Another one.
He and Ollie Robertson have both bowled a few no balls in this test match.
Yeah.
Taller men straining for the line. In comes Carl Jameson again, trying not to overstep this time. Bowls on leg stump, and it's flicked by Pope out to deep square leg. They come through for a single.
Yeah, William Francis has sent a picture in of it's kind of a derelict building with a wind turbine near it. It says, "Greetings from Connemara, where I'm listening via spotty internet while on a pleasure cycle," which could be construed as something else. But I'm assuming you mean a bike ride. That's not the Connemara I know.
Is the pleasure cycle when you sit on top of the washing machine?
There are parts of Connemara that can be quite bleak.
Okay. He's found one.
I got taken there on holiday quite frequently as a child.
Short delivery, Sibley ducks. The ball does not deign to get above waist height as it goes through to BJ Watling, and there is no run. 2 balls left of the over. I wonder actually if they're about to shake hands at the end of this over. There was a lot of clapping going on, and Dom Sibley asked the square leg umpire how many balls are left.
Come on.
Jameson trudges back to the end of his mark and turns and steams in, arms pumping. He's in. Sibley walked across to off stump and blocks up to Southey at mid-on, and there is no run. If we get a shot of the scoreboard now, I'm convinced we're going off at the end of this over.
They can't finish until Nestles has got his carry.
No, I want them to finish just before it comes.
Well, hang on, let's see. 168 plus 104. 7, 275, which would not be a GPL win.
Oh, you're kidding.
Need 2 more runs for Mark Selleck's 277 to be in play.
Does it roll over?
It does. It'll be a fairly big rollover as well for the next test match. Jameson in short delivery, pointless outside off stump. Through to the keeper, there is no run. End of the over. 69 overs gone. Nice. 6 overs remaining.
Looking all business-like.
6 overs remaining according to the Cricinfo scorecard. No, it looks as though they're going to keep going on, keep buggering on.
Most of the crowd appear to be well and truly asleep.
No, Sky are finding the same 3 sleeping people and going to them every single ball.
Can we do a thing where in cricket, if a certain percentage of people fall asleep, they have to call it?
There is Lord's. The home of cricket does slightly have an air at times, if the game isn't particularly exciting, as though you're playing cricket in the chamber of the House of Lords.
Yeah. Well, you are for the most part, with all the members there.
They're going to keep going. Mitchell Santner in, slipping a short leg, tossed up, driven nicely inside out by Pope, straight to Williamson at wideish mid-off, and there is no run.
How many overs did you say are left?
6. 5 after this.
Oh.
Here we go, it's on screen, yeah, 5 overs left.
If I was I'd just go for it. I'd just fucking start slashing at it. Doesn't matter now.
Santner pulls out of his delivery stride and rubs some Lord's ground dust into his hand, which will probably not help that cut on his spinning finger. Ow.
No.
Santner in fires this one in quite leg-sidey, a little bit of drift, but too leg-sidey, and Pope can just turn this away past square. Taylor has to accompany this towards the fine leg boundary. Michael Goff looked as though he was about to signal leg byes and then couldn't be asked, but I think he realised it was bat.
You know what would really annoy me in this situation is if I was batting, if my partner was really busy sort of and wanting to run really fast singles all the time, and I'd be like...
So if you were batting with Joe Root?
I'd be like, get away, mate, go on.
Santner in to Pope down the leg side again. Pope can't beat mid-wicket and there is no run. Santner is getting some revs on the ball, he's getting some drift, getting some dip. There's Ollie Pope and BJ Watling exchange a little word. I think what you really want here is someone like Niroshan Dickweller behind the stumps and have the stump mic up, or Rishabh Pant or someone who you can have a laugh with. This one keeps very low, and Ollie Pope, after blocking the ball into the covers, gets down on both knees to indicate that kept really low. There is no run. I don't think BJ Watling is that much of a talker. He did keep it a little bit low, but Ollie Pope made rather a drama out of it. Ross Taylor is incredibly close at slip as Santner fires this in very flat, and it's dug out to de Grandon at mid-on. There is no run.
It certainly doesn't... I mean, he's bowling all right, but it doesn't seem in the least bit threatening, does it?
Santner in, good delivery. Again, a little bit of dip, a little bit of drift, a little bit of turn. Pope blocks into the offside. There is no run. 170 for 3, 5 overs left.
Jay says, Knuckle, your microphone manipulation is amusing if you have the sense of humour of a child and seeing 3/4 of your picture. No blame on missing the football. I just thought this game would be over by now. Jeff Perkins says, are you now asking for them to curry on?
Oh, hello. A shake of hands. Hands have been shaken. I don't know if that's COVID safe, but the hands have been shaken. The match is drawn. England have saved the test match, or alternatively the test match has died anyway and England couldn't save it, but have saved themselves. England 170 for 3. In truth, it never looked as though England were going to lose this test match. They were set an entirely notional, as it turns out, 273 in 76 overs. It could have been very, very interesting, but New Zealand simply weren't able to make England play often enough. England had no real incentive to go for the win and didn't. Dom Sibley ends with 60 not out of 207 balls, rather, which is valuable in itself. Joe Root, despite everything, ended it with 40 off 70. It was a classic case of I don't know how on earth he got those 40 runs off 71 balls. Rory Burns got a little bit more time in the middle. Looked okay for the most part in his 25 off 81 balls, and Ollie Pope got a nice red inker. Dan Lawrence and James Bracey were not required to bat. The only batter really emerging with any discredit from that innings was Zach Crawley, who looked very nervous in his 25 ball stay at the crease, in which he got 2 runs. Wickets for Tim Southey, 2 wickets for the, I suppose I must call him the wholehearted Neil Wagner. I think that would be entirely apt. He did run in hard all day. Mitchell Santner bowled okay in getting the ball, getting a little bit of drift on the ball. Cotman de Grandhomme bowled tidily in his Chris Harris impersonation of 7 overs. Kyle Jamieson a little bit disappointing in his 15 overs. New Zealand tried to make a game of it. They batted over 4 and over in the first session. Weren't that bothered about losing wickets. Ollie Robinson again bowled very well. But the stars of the match, Devon Conway with his 200, Rory Burns with his 100 in the first innings, 132, both last men out, and Tim Southey with his 6 for 43. We wrap up this test match quickly and we move ahead to Edgbaston.
The big news is that by my calculations there were 277 runs scored today, and although I can't see from my chart who it is, it's showing that there's one selection of 277.
Correct. Mercy Jez, thank you. Mark Selleck. Mark Selleck, you have won. I don't know if you're still listening, Mark Selleck, but you have won with your guess of 277. You've won £77 for your guess of 277. Very nice indeed for you. That's not bad for your... Okay, more than £1 stake because you put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 guesses, but still, good.
Wow.
Still, 77 divided by 13, and that's still nearly 6 to 1. Pretty good. Well done, Mark Selleck.
Strategy.
Well done, Mark Selleck, and I suppose well done England for making what could have been a very dodgy and tricky and torturous afternoon fairly plain sailing in the end, mostly through Dominic Sibley.
It was quite torturous though. Do you want me to wrap up with some final tweets?
Yeah, please do.
Jay Grover says, "I'll thank fuck." Thank you all very much. Also, he says, "Sadly, I'm a sponge for accents. So much as I enjoy Peaky Blinders, it's quite embarrassing for a few days. Less embarrassing when I binged on The Wire." And just to finish it off, I think the old fart was smart. He said, "I've just started drinking. It's a bank holiday in Ireland tomorrow. Records primed." And he's got The Fall to start, and then some Ian Dury and Carter, the Unstoppable Sex Machine. There you go.
Well, that about wraps that up. Thank you to Messy Jez.
Thank you. Thank you all for your company.
Thank you, Nestlers.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you to Ed Benson. Thank you to Gary Naylor. Thank you to Ian Forth, who we had earlier. Thank you to Anindra Dutta and to Tony Bishop and to everyone else who's been with us throughout today and throughout this test match. We'll be back again on Thursday at Edgbaston for the second test match. Possibly some changes. We'll obviously be across all of the news. We'll have articles and we'll have various things like that. But join us on air at 10:45 or 10:50 a.m. UK time, so 9:45 p.m. or 9:50 p.m. depending on what time we decide to go on air on Thursday for the second test between England and New Zealand. Hard fought, some very good cricket. Ended in a slightly anticlimactic manner, but the first test match of the 2-test series is drawn, and we do it all again at Edgbaston on Thursday. From everyone here at Guerrilla Cricket, including me, Knuckle Mpande, it's a very goodbye.
Bye. See you all.
Guerrilla Cricket.